Bring that on. Bring that on.
I'm Commander Shepard, and the Unnamed Games podcast is my favorite podcast on the Citadel. Shepard out.
Hello, people of the internet. I am back. It is me, it is Craig, it is episode 50 of the Unnamed Game podcast. We have been away for a little while and we decided now was the time. Everything's settled down a little bit and we wanted to come back and see all our lovely people again and also talk about 20 years of Xbox. But I'm not on my own. With me I have the usual crew. There they are in all their beautiful splendour and glory. So we have Mr. Alan Longfangs Howlett. How are you, sir?
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm pleased to be here. I want to thank my mum. I want to thank my wife and my cats. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Alan. I do appreciate that. And we have the man, the legend, Mr. Chris Ratley. How are you, sir?
Oh, it's good to be back. I've missed your beautiful faces, people. Oh, yes. I mean, I couldn't follow Alan to accept the speech. He's raised the bar there, so I'm happy to be here. Great to discuss 20 years of Xbox, all that good stuff. So
awesome.
Yeah, happy days.
Good stuff, man. And of course, last but not least, a Mr. Speed, a freak, a Phil. How are you, mate?
He always goes to me last. I think he doesn't like me as much as the other two.
I saved the best till last.
Awesome. Okay, I'll let you off. Well, if you don't, I shall just look directly into the camera.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. Cool.
Yes, I'm back. Love it. Happy to chat about 20 years of Xbox. Let's see where we go down this rabbit hole.
Great stuff. So, what we've decided to do, as you may have seen, we've had a little bit of a change. I've done a little bit of a new rebrand. We've made things look a little bit different and some little, animations and stuff and just change things up. And I think what we're planning to do is try and make things a little bit more freeform, just kind of having a bit of a chat about stuff rather than sort of dipping like really deep into the news and stuff like we used to do. So just to try and just bring the fun back a little bit and make it stop feeling like it was starting to become quite a bit like work, wasn't it, chaps? So a work that we didn't get paid for. So
being in your company,
we paid for
payment enough.
Yeah. Right. Cool. So.
You said that to me last night too, so don't worry about it.
Before we get stuck in, can I just comment, Alan? I'm loving the new pad, the new office. It's very cool. I like your Marvel posters behind you. I can see it's very, very tasty, man.
Thank you very much. A bit of a hasty setup. I was trying to stick them up on the wall with some command strips, and they both fell off. So they're now propped against the bookshelf. But it was a case. It's a big blank canvas at the moment. I've only been in the new house just over a month, so I haven't had a lot of time to really set anything up. But we'll see that background evolve as we go on.
Mate, it's awesome. Glad you're in there, man. Happy days.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to
Thanks to Phil for helping move.
You're very welcome. I thank you for the bacon sandwich you provided me for helping you move.
Good stuff. Cool. So what the plan is then, a bit of a brief plan. What we're going to do, we're going to just find out what we've been up to. Obviously not the entire time we've been away because that'd be about an hour each. But maybe just what we've been doing over the sort of, the recent weeks and have a bit of chat about that. And then, like I said, we're going to go into talk a little bit about celebrating 20 years of Xbox, some Xbox memories that we have, and then just some chitter chat in between. So I am going to go first. Since he made such a big fuss, I'm going to go to Mr. Phil and find out what have you been up to, mate. Tell us.
Oh, now you've set the bar. I don't know whether I should talk a long time or a short time about the things I've done.
Just go
This
ahead.
never happens.
Talk,
I
we can have a
going
chat.
last. I like it. So what have I been up to? I was trying to think about what I'd done, because it's been a good 3 months in terms of what we were playing. And I think the last thing I was playing when we were chatting on the podcast was Tales of Arise.
Okay.
And I did finally complete it.
How long did it take?
And you know what? I really enjoyed playing it. I don't want to talk about that. That bit I don't wish to discuss. It was north of 60 hours at least. And I think I'm probably being a little bit generous there as well. I think it was
good value.
I was saying that's a good thing, right?
It was good value.
It wasn't just
And there was,
being padded out, and that was good content. Then that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, if you enjoyed the 60 hours.
Now, I took one look at the. Do you know what? Like, I'm obviously an anime fan, and whilst the game didn't do anything revolutionary, like it was a little bit pretty in the old Tales games, but the format was very similar. Like, it's in a battle arena. It wasn't that interesting, they tweaked the combat a bit, but it's basically the same format they've used for the last 5 games. But the story I found really engaging, and it was like playing through an anime story. Mm-hmm. So I ended up really enjoying it, and they had really fantastic interactions between the characters. Like, just when you're running through the general, I say open world, the linked areas of the world, they'd have little... Yeah, exactly. They'd have little chats while you're out live, and they'd comment on things you went past. And they'd have these little... you could press RB, and it would do almost like a comic strip, where they'd have a conversation around specific subjects. And there were so many of those that every time you thought, oh yeah, I haven't heard anything, and then bing, it was straight in there. Just at the moment, it felt like it was dying off, and you'd done maybe a couple of battles, and then another sort of tippet would drop in, a little bit of conversation, a bit of kind of exponent about that character and how those characters interact. So I really enjoyed that, actually. Obviously, as you change your different characters in and out the party, you get slightly different interactions as well.
That game was... Well, I played the demo on that, and it was quite jarring for me in the fact that, I mean, it's a beautiful game, like the characters, the animation and stuff they've done. It's stunning looking. But when you actually get into the game, it's like this really pretty game that's been put into a really maybe sort of 20-year-old format. It's like, yeah.
That's exactly it. It's almost like it's downfall and it's kind of salvation. Like, I think maybe if they'd gone too far away from that format, the diehard fans, I'm not a diehard fan, by the way, I just enjoyed that game, would probably not like it. And then they'd have to rebalance the whole model. They'd then be testing, and then maybe the game wouldn't have been successful. I think by using that same format, it allowed them to express the story in greater detail. And they really nailed down the detail and the character interactions and things like that. And maybe if they'd been trying to balance it with a new game engine, that might have perhaps been a problem. Things like some of I think Final Fantasy 15 is a good example where they were testing a whole new game engine and it did have an impact on the story. Mass Effect Andromeda is another good example where they changed it so many times and they were trying to make it work with a new game engine and it just fell apart, didn't it? So I wonder whether maybe that's why they chose to take that route. But all in all, I enjoyed it. If you like anime, it's well worth a play. You will enjoy it. What else have I been playing? I did dip back into Ghost Recon Breakpoint. I played quite a significant amount with one of my colleagues at work, who I should name as Combat Cam, because he is very, very into his milsim stuff. And I bowled up looking like Rambo with my mohawk and my chest, my vest and my guns out and the tattoos. And he turned up looking like a Navy SEAL. I felt like a bit of a chum. I was like, oh. He's like, yeah, I've got the khaki netting camo, and they do it for this bit and this bit of the gun, so it looks realistic. And it was just like, wow, okay, you put a lot of time. And they'd be like, right, so we're going to go and do this base, and we're going to drop in about 2 kilometers away, and we'll have a little bit of a tab march across the marshes there, and then we'll get in and check it out, and we'll start working through. And I went into it for a good 2 or 3 weeks, hardcore milsim in Ghost Recon Breakpoint. And I'm pleased to report, with all the changes they've made and the updates over the years, you really can do that.
Yeah.
I appreciate, it is all cosmetic, changing the camo and, when you go into the snowy area, put the snow camo, that is just for your benefit entirely. There's no game benefit to doing it, which I think is perhaps a little bit of a shame and maybe an opportunity when they do perhaps look at another Ghost Recon that's not a multiplayer shooter or a battle royale or
I am so glad that they kind of put a delay. I don't know if they completely put the kibosh on it, but a delay on the I can't remember what it was called now, the battle royale type thing that they were doing with Ghost Recon.
Ghost Recon, yeah, we messed this up as well, wasn't it? Yeah, that was the one.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, that's the one. We've done it again, boys and girls. We didn't listen, and we've come up with
this.
We spent 3 years fixing it. Now we're going to break it all over again. Have it.
You've got to feel bad as a developer when you put your video out of your game. You've put all these years of hard work in, and all it gets is negative, like thumbs down on YouTube. It's got to be gutting.
I feel bad for doing it as well, but there's a point where you kind of have to make your opinion known because when it comes to Ghost Recon, we've all said this, not just now, but forever and a day. Like, make it a Ghost Recon game, and yet they went, "Hey, what you want is a battle royale game, right?" And it's like, no, we've been saying to the
I just love it. It's like, we've got a new Ghost Recon game. We're like, brilliant. We all love Wildlands. If this is Wildlands, it's going to be fantastic. It's got Gear Score. And we're like, what the fudge? Yeah. How did you do it? And they just keep doing it. Yeah.
It's so much worse though with that battle royale, with the fact that they've just spent so long fixing Breakpoint. And as you say, Phil, I've been playing a bit of Breakpoint as well, but I won't tread on your time. But it's so, and you can see the remnants of the game it was. I didn't play it at launch, and I'm like, thank God I waited to play this game because it's now the game it should have been, and not the game. And I would have been angry with that game at launch. I think very, very angry. So yeah. But anyway, Phil, sorry, I don't want to tread on your. You're right. I can imagine, mate.
Yeah, me and Craig dipped into the demo and we're like, brilliant, it's Ghost Recon. It's got Gear Score. It's like, it's okay, it's Ghost Recon. And we played about an hour of that demo and we just gave up, didn't we? We're just like, this is not the game for us. I'm going to go play Destiny
or The Division,
Yeah, because you might as well.
Yeah. Because those games are designed to do that. This is, I don't want to talk about that. The game is in a much better place now. They've released that Motherland DLC where they've ported they have re-engaged with the bad guys from Wildlands in there. They completely reset the map. You're basically going back 6 months after the initial campaign on Aroa, where you're taking out the Punisher, because I can't remember his name.
I forget his
name. John Bernthal, yeah.
Walker.
So, Walker, yeah. So once you've dealt with Walker and his band of cronies, you come back 6 months later, and lo and behold, the most technologically advanced island in the world is in the shiz again, and you have to go back in and fix it. So good stuff. But it's really nice. It resets the map. There's new objectives, new bad guys. There's a slightly different layout to like the patrols and things. So yeah, if you haven't checked out Breakpoint, now is the time to check it out because it's the game it should have always been. Now, I would also be remiss if I didn't talk about Horizon 5. Oh God, I've spent so many hours playing this. No? So it's a little thing. It's by Playground Studios. I know they're better known for games like the new Fable game they're making.
Horizon Zero Dawn was only on its second version.
It's Aloy in a souped-up Corvette.
Yeah, exactly. She's got her Fast and Furious Supra, so she can rouse down there with the orange paint and take out a T-Rex. I mean, I'll be honest, it's Playground. I wouldn't put it past using a car to take out a T-Rex at some point in one of the DLCs. Don't steal my idea, Playground, unless you're going to pay me.
Well, we've got one viewer, so maybe that is perhaps someone from Playground Games. Let's be honest, I very much doubt it is, but
Maybe that'll get back. You know what? If there's cars driving into a T-Rex and blowing it up, okay. Yeah. You heard it here first. That game, the multiplayer is a little bit janky, but you know what? It doesn't matter. It's such good fun to play that game. The Playground games are as fun as they've always been, unless you come across a team that are coordinated and much better than you, like we did 2 days ago. And we got... Yeah. It was a pantsing. It was a proper schoolyard pantsing. Is the only explanation. Like, we didn't stand.
It didn't help though that, again, talking about the multiplayer, there is the odd issue in there that this is an example of one of the issues. I spawned in with everyone else and I was like, why is there 3 cars just sat there doing nothing? I'm going to go and ram them in infected. So I rammed them. I've just infected 3 cars. It's not registering. Hold on, the cars have disappeared. Hold on, I can't see anyone but my own team. So for the rest of the game, I was driving around everywhere and there was invisible cars that were hitting me or stealing my flags. I had no way to get away from them. I was playing with Alan and Phil going, I'll just drive up and down the runway in swerves, see if I can get away from people.
I think you still scored more than I did, to be fair.
The best part of that was listening to Craig scream going, I don't know if they're behind me or not. I think they are. And then one of us going, Craig, there's 3 of them behind you. And you're like, drive faster, please. But it was broken and terrible, but yet it made that moment, because that will be a happy memory of you screaming in pain down a runway as fast as you can, hoping that 3 people don't ram you from behind. Saturday night in the pub, eh, Craig?
What on earth?
That did not take long. That did not take long.
Oh, I just
Got an audio problem there from someone.
Ratley turned into a Dalek for a minute.
Possibly me. Just because I had a bit of a seizure when Phil said that.
It's still gone all funny. Your audio has, Chris.
Oh,
You sound like a robot.
Am I better now?
He's just about to say he's finally been unveiled. He's a cyborg.
Yeah. The truth, I've broken the cyborg.
Oh no! Could you hear me now?
It's all funny.
Am I good now? I'll tell you what, boys. I'll be back.
We'll see you in a tick.
So I just want to jump in on this conversation about Forza 5 because I want to be a little bit controversial, and I want to make it clear I'm really enjoying Forza 5 when we've jumped in and we've played it. And I played it a couple of times, but I don't know whether it's just me and my own mindset, but I kind of think there seems to be a duality in what we're willing to accept in one type of game and what we're not willing to accept in another. So I look at Forza 5 and I can't see absolutely anything different from Forza 4. Now, that's not to say that the actual game and everything is broken or that there's not enough content. It's a perfectly created game. But if I was to put on Forza 4 and Forza 5 together, you could not tell the difference. They are exactly the same game. Maybe the graphics fidelity is a bit better, but as far as gameplay, they are exactly the same. Tiny changes, Craig. I'm sorry, tiny changes. And then people go on about, oh, Far Cry, they don't do any innovation and they don't change anything. So why is it we're so willing to be so forgiving to a game like Forza and then everybody shites all over Far Cry or Assassin's Creed? What's the difference? We're all sitting here, and quite frankly, the multiplayer in Forza 5 is rubbish. I'm sorry, but it is. For a game with this much pedigree, fifth in the series, and they still can't get the multiplayer right, and we're over a week and a half since release, and it's still rubbish. It's unacceptable. And for us to be sitting here going, Forza 5 is brilliant, and yet other games that have done better on release and don't have the same issues, we sit there and go, oh no, that's rubbish, that's terrible. What's the difference,
It's a very
guys?
valid point.
All right, mate, I think it's am I good now, by the way, guys?
Yes, you are, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, so I think
You are no longer a Dalek.
well, you said that, but the cyborg is still real. You know what I'm saying? The disguise is back. No, I think Alan's got a very fair point, and we had a bit of a discussion about this on text, and I think Alan's right. I mean, I've always, with Far Cry, I've always found it very samey, and occasionally the bad guy will drag me into Far Cry. So Far Cry 5, I loved it because I think the setting really got me and pulled me into it. And I do think we maybe give racing games as a whole a bit of a pass, because maybe it's because it's there's less room to innovate in a racing game, especially when it's more simulation based, because you've got to kind of adhere to reality a little bit. I think Forza probably on this occasion is probably getting held up by being backwards compatible with previous generation machines. Like, I think if it was fully fledged Series X, Series S, we'd see more things that the Series X and S goes. Like, we'd see more ray tracing, we'd see, more dynamic stuff going on. I don't know for sure. I'm just spitballing a little bit. I think there is. I mean, it's a very technically impressive game. I think graphically it is quite a step forward from where we were in 4. It doesn't necessarily scream that at you. Like, it's not. I think again, racing games have always looked so good for so long now that to see those incremental, really clever things, it's you have to go Digital Foundry levels of breaking it down. And when you look at the Digital Foundry breakdown, there's been a lot of innovations across the engine and what they do. So technically, it's quite an achievement. But I do get what Alan's saying in that I think for gameplay stuff, especially when you've got something like Horizon, which is so mature in of itself and has such a good breadth of gameplay across all of its games, to really bring something new and fresh to the table is going to be difficult for Playground Games. So I'm all for more of the same as long as it keeps being good. I think where Far Cry maybe gets a little bit a stickling a little bit is quite often that isn't good. It feels just like exactly what you played before, and it's stale, but we've just kind of reskinned the bad guys a little bit. And I get that's sort of the same thing, but it's more ground to be innovative and more exciting with a shooter in a fantasy land, essentially. I know they're realistic shooters, but and I do think some of the weapon design in Far Cry is amazing. Like, one thing Far Cry's always done well is cool weapons and fun, which actually Far Cry.
I think this is something they've
Right,
said
didn't
about Far Cry 6, isn't it? Far Cry 6 has elements of Just Cause within it.
Yeah.
So it's almost like the combat is much more fun and much more fluid and much more Just Cause feel to it.
Yeah.
And I think that is the big innovation for 6. But everybody's jumping on that it doesn't have any innovation in the gameplay. But let's face it, games like Forza and games like Far Cry, despite being completely different genres, as in driving and shooting, they are a tick the boxes games. And that's what they do. You go here, you go to an area, you do this, this, and this. Forza, you drive here, you do this race, this race, this race. And they are fundamentally the same sort of plan of game.
Yeah, do you know one of the things I was thinking is when you get like Forza games, you tend to find that the adjustments between Forza games, it's a very subtle change, but it feels like it creates quite a big difference. Like I think Forza 5 feels very different to Forza Horizon 4, like just to drive. I mean, I guess I'm a bit of an avid racing fan. That's always been my preferred genre. And I can feel really big differences between the cars and how the game feels. Like Forza 5 feels more simulation than Forza 4. Horizon 4 felt a lot more arcadey. And I think 4 felt more arcadey than 3. And with 5, they've almost gone back to 3. And that's where this kind of subtle variation comes in. Like I said, it is difficult to innovate, and they can't change it too much. It's a racing game at the end of the day. It's an open world racing game. I don't know what.
I think you're right, Phil, as well. Like I think it probably is getting to this point where a lot of these type of games where it's very granular, the change, and it'll only be when you stick with it for a long time or go hardcore on it, you really see the big differences. It could be the same with Far Cry. That possibly with some people just dipping into it and going, oh, it's just another Far Cry game. You don't get to see, like, maybe there's a breadth of combat involving the weapons and stuff. And it's very easy to draw those conclusions from things. And sometimes that's a conscious choice, I think, on a developer to keep it familiar initially so it doesn't alienate returning players, if you know what I mean. I think that's a very conscious choice as well. So it's possible that, because Alan isn't as hardcore on racing games as you feel, that he isn't seeing those innovations that you feel more intrinsically because you spent longer with Horizon and you.
Don't misinterpret what I'm saying here. I'm not saying that Forza 5 is a bad game and that I'm not enjoying it, right? So that, because maybe it's at the point that Forza 5 is it's almost, and I hate to say this, but it's a perfect game, and it's obviously not. You're never going to have a perfect game, but what it does exceedingly well. As far as it is a
apart from the multiplayer.
But it is a world where, supposedly, if they get it actually right seamlessly, you should jump in and you should be able to jump out with your friends, and we've been doing an element of that, and it's great fun. I love the races, apart from the off-road ones, because Phil hates those and he complains continuously throughout the entire race. But other than those, I love the content. I
don't think I'm alone for that.
And there's always something to do, and there's always something interesting. So maybe they've reached the peak. My point is more angled towards not just us, but as an industry. You look at like the reviews online, and they slate Far Cry 6 and they applaud Forza 5. And I look at them and I think, well, what's different?
I think just to add my 2 pence worth in on that, I think there's several sort of things we're talking about there. Yeah, the innovation side of things, I think you are kind of right in what you say, that there are small changes to it in terms of the gameplay, and I think you can liken it more to like a FIFA or a Madden, where it's a game. There isn't a lot of room to innovate in a sports game. It's more of updating the locations, updating some of the activities and things like that. But in terms of the networking side of things, yes, it is an absolute nightmare that it's not working properly. You can't put group waypoints down. You're constantly phasing in and out of different sessions and things like that. Now, my understanding of the changes and why it's so different now to what it was with Forza 4 is they've fundamentally changed the way that those servers will work to try and make it more like an MMO. So when you played Forza 4, Forza 3, Forza 2, for example, you would have to get yourself into a room or into a lobby with all of your friends. You had to convoy up, and it would then create an instance with you in it, and other people would start to fall into that instance. The idea with this is, when it works, and this is my understanding, I might have got it slightly wrong, but it is my understanding, that when your friends log in, they will automatically phase into your instance. So if all of your friends are online playing, but you're still playing on your own, all of your friends will still be in your lobby. They're just not in the same convoy. And that's the fundamental, or the big technology change behind Forza 5 that's different from Forza 4. The problem is, when they've launched it, it hasn't worked. Yeah.
Doesn't
So
work.
so when they
It's
nail
still-
it, it's going to
still
be really
being-
good, I think, because that was something that used to frustrate me in the older Forzas. It was sometimes a pain to get everyone together, or you'd be jumping in and out of different convoys and things like that. They've tried to make that more seamless and more fluid. It's just they've run into loads of network issues with it. And as we know from many games, it seems a pretty much a running trend. If you have any kind of online networking in your game, when you launch it, it will not work. I can't remember the last game that I played where it just worked. And, you know,
It doesn't seem to matter how many
Yeah.
tests, how many beta tests and alpha tests. It always seems to crap out
I
at the
think it's
wrong
just
times.
yeah.
And let's be honest, I mean, didn't Forza 5, it's been the most successful launch
Yeah,
of
it
a
was
Forza
massive.
game.
Massive.
Yeah, particularly, pushed by the support of Game Pass
I
on
was
there
about to
as
say
well.
it helps it's on Game Pass.
10 million in
Yeah.
1 week. 10
Well, I
million
mean-
players in 1 week, yeah.
Wasn't it 4.5 billion the first day or something
Yeah.
stupid like that?
Yeah, I mean, picture that. I mean, that's the kind of impact that Forza had. Now imagine what's going to happen when
Yeah.
Infinite drops.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Servers are going to be crying.
Well, I think that's a good segue into Infinite, to be honest, mate. I think we've all been playing that as well, haven't we? Had a little go.
I've had a go,
Yeah.
I've had a go.
It's I mean, Halo Infinite. I think I just read something this morning that Battlefield 2042 has launched today, and on its launch day, Halo Infinite on Steam has a higher concurrent player count than Battlefield 2042. So, ouch to EA.
That's a bit worrying for those 100-player matches, really.
just
isn't
a
it?
bit. So
Yeah, apparently Battlefield. I mean, I haven't played it, but Battlefield's apparently riddled with technical issues as well. So I don't know the ins and outs of it. But almost every review I've been like, it's a state at the minute, which is a real shame because there's a core of a really good game in it, and they're just like the state of it's just putting people off. And and like you say, the trouble is it's launching at the same time as Halo Infinite now, and Infinite's going to be free on Game Pass. And what are we probably all going to? It's like
Infinite's free everywhere, isn't it? It's the multiplayer's free everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, multiplayer's free everywhere. Yeah, and and then we get the campaign shortly, and Master Chief. Sorry, it's the Master Chief.
Yeah.
It's the Master Chief.
I mean, I've literally played one game with bots, the trainee game, and that's all I've done so far because I'd rather play with everybody else because. I said this the other day, all these extra frames and this amazing, the graphics are just stunning and the fluid gameplay still makes absolutely no difference to the fact I'm rubbish at Halo. So, if I just jump into games, I'm just going to get trounced by 12-year-olds every 5 minutes. So, it's a demoralizing experience. So eventually you just, but playing with friends when I'm getting trounced by Craig and Phil, that's more acceptable because at least I can give them some shit in return.
Yeah, do you know what, Al? I'm very much in your boat. I'm not a great Halo player anymore. Like I say, I had my time when I was younger on the OG Xbox, which we'll talk about a bit later. Yeah. But I went on launch day day after launch day with Phil Weeks, a good friend of ours, a mutual friend.
Back in a moment, chaps.
No worries. And basically, I played some big team battle with him, and I have to say, even though I'm not particularly good at Halo, I had an absolute riot because big team battle is just a lot of fun. The maps could be a little bit better for vehicles. I will say that I don't think the vehicles get a lot of room to shine on some of the big team battle maps. They're a little bit, especially when you get the tanks. The tanks are great until you try and get them anywhere, and the map's so twisty and turny at points that you can't really get tanks across the map. And flying vehicles have some serious power on a lot of those maps. But I have had a lot of fun in big team battle. I've had a couple of really infuriating matches as well, but I capture the flags and things like that. I mean, I've already got a great moment. We were playing a bit of capture the flag. We actually had a really rough first. It was 2-2. We had a really rough start because we got 2-0 down really quickly. Somehow got it back to 2-2, and then I just grabbed a Warthog. Phil jumped in with me. We bombed across the map. I just grabbed the flag, jumped back in the Warthog. Someone else, some random, grabbed in the driver's seat. We flew back across the map, and I'm just run in for the capture and slide in.
Nice.
Just someone recaptures our flag just as I slide in and go and just capture the win. I was like, yeah. Nice. So even being bad at it, I've had a couple of really cool moments of Halo, and I often someone was like, oh. I think I was playing with a friend of Phil's, and he was like, yeah, my KD was all right. I had just over 1. And I was like, cool. Mine was 6 kills, 17 deaths. And I was like, but you know what? I'm not playing for stats. I'm playing for fun. And it was fun, and I didn't really care, So, I haven't figured out all the guns yet either. Some of the guns are mental. But
have you guys had much of a chance to try the grappling hook yet?
I've tried it a bit. I'm really bad with
Oh,
it. I just tend to get myself in more trouble with it than I sort of go. I see all these people doing really cool things with it online, and I'm like, yeah, let me try that. I've been shot.
Isn't Halo one of those games, despite what we've just been talking about, isn't Halo one of those games that actually has had a fairly smooth release?
It's been all right
not
so
bad,
far.
I would say.
I mean, I've heard a couple of little niggles, but generally, overall, all credit to 343. This is one of those rare occurrences these days, and it's sad to say that, but one of these rare occurrences where the release has been pretty much
So
impeccable.
far, yeah.
I will say that I think there are some. I mean, I think it was discussed in one of our group chats earlier, guys.
Yeah.
I think there was some slight technical issues with the game per se. Just not the bad technical issues, but a few things that I'd like 343 to address. Like we said, the melee combat's a little weird in the game and things like that.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
And I think I'd agree with that. I kept missing melees and being like, what the hell is going on here? And someone said, yeah, I meleeed someone directly from the front and got a one-hit kill. And it's like, something's not registering right there. So there are a few little niggles with Halo, but overall though, like, again, I've come back to this point. I know that we've talked about it before. Games are meant to be fun first and foremost. Forget the technical execution. A game should be fun before anything else. And that's the one thing I can say with absolute confidence in my time with Halo Infinite is I've had an absolute blast in Halo Infinite. Every minute of it so far has been fun. Well, I say a couple of frustrating games, but I don't think that's more because I was sucking and I was getting frustrated that I was sucking. That's got nothing to do with Halo Infinite. That's got everything to do with me.
At least you're honest.
But yeah, so. Yeah, mate, I'm honest that I'm bad at it, per se. But I mean, basically, I've been having a blast with it, and I know, I'm sure, Craig, you've got a lot to say about Halo Infinite because you're the big Halo fan in the room at the end of the day.
Well,
so,
I mean, I've dabbled. I've just certainly dabbled. I was obviously really excited when the 20th anniversary presentation came up and they shadow dropped Halo Infinite. I was good.
You kind of predicted that actually on the chat. You said that might do that.
I think there was some rumours floating around, and I've read a couple of rumours online, that there was.
Because of course it's not just Xbox's 20th anniversary on that day, it's Halo's 20th anniversary on that day, isn't it? As well, because Halo was a launch title.
That's it. Yeah. So obviously I've jumped in. I've had several games. I've played quite a few on my own. I've jumped in with a team of 3 other people, so I've had full squads as well. And I'm definitely exactly the same as you boys. In my old age, I definitely prefer to play with friends, and you kind of you work together, and so you don't just you just get on with a bunch of 13-year-olds who are just awesome, just doing 360 no scopes and stuff like that, because I can't do that stuff anymore. But it's just for me with Halo, it's all about that moment-to-moment gameplay in the multiplayer, and that's always had that. And I think what they've done in terms of the actual game mechanics and physics, they've really amplified that, where things like the grappling hook, for example, if you see there's a warthog coming towards you down the other end of the map and you can see an explosive barrel, you can grappling hook that barrel, grab it and lob it to blow up the warthog. Or if you see a power weapon, you can grappling hook the power weapon in. You can pick all these different items up, and that if you smash stuff with a grav hammer, it goes flying, everything, and it gives these little bits of physics that can really kind of change that moment-to-moment gameplay. We got an achievement the other day. Somebody lobbed a grenade at me, and I had some kind of repulsor tech shield on. Just go poof like that, and it just sends the grenade flying back at them. And I've seen a fantastic little clip of somebody playing that where they've knocked it back. It's gone over the person who threw it, through a gap, over to the other side of the map, and landed on the back of another guy's head and blew him up. It's stuff like that that's just wicked.
It's always been a thing with Halo. I remember seeing sniper shots that were from older games where it would bounce around the map, and some random guy would just get it inside the head, and you're like,
that's it. I think one thing we've got to remember as well is it is still in beta. So it isn't actually launched yet. I really like the maps that I've played so far, but I definitely get what you're saying, Chris, in terms of the big team battle maps. They're very, very tight. There's not a lot of open space maps and things like that. And I think I can imagine there's going to be more and more maps that are added in. And one thing I really...
Well, there's some I've seen in the beta and the testing that hasn't been released yet to play on Big Team Battle. There's definitely more maps
I
to come.
sincerely hope that they start to launch some classic maps into it, because they're talking about Halo Infinite being this platform for Halo. I hope they launch some... I mean, Blood Gulch and things like that,
It's got to be Blood Gold,
You know,
doesn't it?
exactly.
On,
There's so many maps that just need to come back, and there's no reason why they can't do that. But so far, all it's done is make me so excited to play the campaign. I cannot wait. Right into the point where actually I'm going to segue slightly onto something, just sort of talking a bit about what I've been up to. I put on Halo Wars 2. Literally last night, because just playing a bit of Halo Infinite, and I think, the campaign's come in, and just hearing all this stuff about the Banished, and I'm not really much of a fan of RTS games. I used to be back in the day, but these days I tend to give them a miss, really, because I know I don't get into them as much as I used to. But Halo Wars 2 is all based around the Banished, isn't it? And Atriox, who is the big bad for Halo Infinite. So Halo Wars 2, I can see if you're an RTS fan, it's probably pretty good. It definitely isn't really my bag, to be honest. But the cutscenes and the story so far in Halo Wars 2 is fantastic. The introduction to Atriox, because I kind of thought to myself, he's just a brute. Okay, I wonder what they're going to do. What's going to make him special? There's a scene where 3 Spartans go into a room and Atriox turns up and just throws them around like tin cans. He's an absolute beast.
So, what I was going to say about that, Craig, because like I love the Halo Wars series. They're some of my favourite games, actually, some of my favourite Halo games as well. And if you remember, did you ever finish Halo Wars 1? So at the end of Halo Wars 1, what makes that scene with Atriox so significant is at the end of Halo Wars 1, just right towards the end, there's a scene with the Spartans on the bridge. Everyone who's played it will know what it is. And basically, you see the Arbiter at the time, because Halo Wars is set in a funny time. It's not the Arbiter from Halo 2, but an Arbiter of some type. He's trying to sabotage what's going on. And Locke, who's a character from Halo 1, was like, he's mine. You guys take care of them. The Spartans turn. There's like a bridge of elites just charging him down. And you just watch the Spartan Team Red just disassemble this like horde of elites. And it is one of the best cutscenes. I was like, I said, if it had Halo moments, it'd be one of my favourite Halo moments. And then, of course, Halo Wars 2 opens up and Spartan Team Red go in and they meet Atriox. And it's just like, holy crap. Like Atriox goes, yeah, whatever, mate. and they literally put on the back foot and like the last line, like, run, little demons. And I was like, whoever this dude is, he's so unbelievably cool. Like, such a badass. And I was like, because after seeing Spartan Team Red, just literally, it's so brilliant watching the way they choreographed that cutscene with the elites. To see the complete turnaround with Atriox, it's like,
yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. If you haven't got to it, Craig, there's a cutscene later on in Halo Wars 2, which is on the carrier.
No,
if
not
you haven't
yet.
got to that point yet. Is it Alice the AI?
Yeah.
Alice is the AI, isn't she? Yeah, when you get to where she goes to the carrier with one of the Spartans, mate. Oh, that cutscene is
Awesome.
It's so
Nice.
good. Yeah, so look forward to that.
Yeah, no, it's definitely it's got me really pumped for the campaign of Halo Infinite. But skipping back away from me again, I was going to go to Alan. What have you been up to recently, Alan?
Well, first thing, I've played New World.
As we have both played a lot of it. I've gone off it a little bit recently, but yeah.
Yeah. You've been missed. But I managed to get my son into it as well, Alex. So he's been playing with me. So, but I played a little bit less as well recently. But I did the huge grind. I didn't make it to max level. I think I'm about 49 out of 60. But still, maybe when you jump back on, we can come and do, because the problem I find with New World, it's a fantastic game, by the way. I'm absolutely loving it. It's the first MMORPG that I've been in from the ground up. And the first one I've really played for any substantial time. Played some Elder Scrolls Online, but never to any sort of length. So this is the first one, and from literally day one. So I find that it's been really interesting experience and a really enjoyable experience, kind of learning the systems and kind of, as you play more and more, it opens up more things that you can do. I haven't even got to the strongholds yet because I haven't reached max level. And the PvP side of things, it's mostly been PvE. But absolutely loving that grind and doing the missions and actually finding out that the dungeons are actually really cool and really good fun. But that inherently is one of the issues I've found with it, is that sometimes it can be really, really hard to find people to do the dungeons with, and they're minimum people dungeons. So you have to have, I think it's minimum of 3 for all of them. And as you say, I'm not trying to make you feel guilty, but it's kind of like you go and put loads of things in the chat saying looking for this mission, and nobody wants to do it. They're doing their own thing, and you can sit there. I sat there for an hour one day trying to do one of the dungeons, and eventually just gave up and went off and did other stuff because I couldn't get 3 people together to do the dungeon with me. I even tried to jump into a couple of other parties, and they were kind of like, "No, we're already full, mate." And it's like, "Oh, all right then." And it was just a little bit disappointing because it's kind of I've reached the point now where like there's a couple of dungeons I'm completely OP for now. And when I go back, I think the experience is going to be different. So I think that's one thing that, from my point of view, I think is a downside to New World, that they need to look at some way of sort of matching people up to play those dungeons if you don't have a group.
I was going to ask the question. So all the previous I'm a big MMO fan, but I really didn't get into New World. I tried. I made it to like 25.
Too much brown.
Yeah, it was way too brown. I heard, too much brown.
It was very brown, yeah. But all the other MMOs I've played, they all have their own matchmaking systems built in for the dungeons. So you basically slot whichever your preferred class is, whether you're running tank or DPS or healer, and it puts you in a slot, and then it will automatically matchmake with other people looking for that dungeon, and it will put different people in each of the slots. And the only real delay was then if you couldn't find... So like with Final Fantasy, there was always a shortage of tanks as a general rule. So if you played tank, you were in straight away, and you were MVP because everybody needed you. If you're anything else, you might queue for 30 minutes for one of the more popular ones because there's just, there was like 8 DPS classes versus 2 tank classes for most of it.
Yeah. Sadly, New World doesn't have that facility yet. Maybe that's something they'll have in the future. But as I say, that's something that I found a little disappointing, but it's the only thing. I think one of the things when I first started playing New World is I was worried that the kind of characterization of the world and everything would be a bit samey. And I have absolutely been completely, contradicted on that thought, because despite the fact it's not your typical like monsters, orcs and elves and that kind of world, it's humans and there are monsters. It's like, and even though the variety of monsters is okay, it's not massive, but it's pretty good. But once you start going to different regions, the amount of effort they put in to make those regions feel unique, and bright fields or Bright Hollow, that's one of my favourite areas. It's all near Gothic and graveyards,
very Sleepy Hollow, isn't it?
Stuff like that.
Yeah,
it is, and I love the ethos for that. It just feels so cool when you go there. And then there's Weaver's Fen, where it's all like toxic and blight and like swampland and stuff like that. And really, actually, the amount of effort that has been put in to make each area feel distinct and unique and really interesting to play in and go there is really fantastic. And the leveling up is fantastic. I love all the aspects of the grind and which is what most of these games are like, to be fair. And you actually feel like you're achieving something. But for me, the selling point on New World has always been the combat. The combat does not feel generic. It doesn't feel like you're just pressing A and B and whatever, just to do certain moves. Yes, it doesn't have loads of signature moves, but the way that you kind of fight makes you feel like you're actually contributing. You're not just pressing soft attack and hard attack. You're literally doing something that, you have to, actually think about what you're doing. It feels really fluid, doesn't it?
It's action-based combat, and it's skill-based rather than, a lot of MMOs you play is very much stat-based. If you've got higher stats, you're going to win. Or if you just need to make sure you're healing correctly as you're going through or whatever, things like that. And there's totally a place for that type of game. But that's definitely what drew me into New World first, was that whole action-based combat, because it is, akin to a Dark Souls or something like that. That's in terms of the combat, it's not like a Dark Souls game in any shape. And very much the same as you, like really totally loving the world, really got stuck into it for a long time. The biggest problem for me that I found with that game is it's an inherent issue of, I think why they delayed the game in the first place. It's the game when it first was announced was a PvP only game. So everybody was PvP flag all the time. They then changed that to make it so that you had optional PvP flag and put a little bit of the kind of PvE content in, a bit heavier. And then I think they got even more feedback people saying there isn't enough PvE content. That's why they delayed it for over a year to put that all in. And what I'm seeing is the further I'm getting, because I think I'm level 40 now, so I'm at 10 levels behind you. I got to the point where the missions are just, all I'm doing is just generic side missions, which are fetch quests. There's the story has just dried up to nothing. Whereas I thought initially at the start it was starting to go somewhere with, getting this Azoth staff and becoming a Soul Warden, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. And we went to the first dungeon. I found myself grinding up to the point it says you need to be level 40 to get your next main mission. I grinded to level 40, and that main mission was get to level 45 to go into the next dungeon. I was like, I just wanted I was hoping for some story to open up just to help me through the main thing.
Yeah, okay. I can imagine
the leveling
as a player. I can imagine you get to 40 and I go, so your mission is level some more. And
but
like,
the actual moments of open gameplay is brilliant.
The leveling,
and we've been running around questing together, haven't we, Alan? Like Alan's ranged fire staff and me tanking it up. Got my big tower shield, and I've got an ability where I stick my tower shield down. It puts like a ring of protection around everybody, and it's great fun. I really, really enjoy it. But there is, you can see it's still got a long way to go. But it's an MMO. The amount of MMOs that launch Final Fantasy is a great example. When that launched, they actually ended up basically canning the game and
they destroyed the game. Yeah, they destroyed it. There was literally an event that destroyed the world, and then they basically took it offline for I think it's either 9 months or 15 months or something like that. Then they relaunched it as A Realm Reborn, and then they hit all the right beats when they relaunched it, and it's I think it might even be technically bigger than WoW now. I think it's at the point where the logic around.
Haven't we been down this rabbit hole?
We have. But there's been a lot of changes more recently. I don't know anything about WoW, but apparently one of their more recent content DLCs wasn't very popular, and it's caused a lot of people to migrate across. Apparently,
I mean, at the very end, you can say it's an incredible turnaround to go from a game that no one wanted to play and had to be taken offline because it was in such a state to now being talked about in the same breath as the biggest MMORPG ever. You've got to say, wow, what an achievement that is. It's incredible, isn't it? You talk about success stories about rebirths and things like that. Is nailing it right there, isn't it? And
I think Craig's right. I mean, that's the thing about MMORPGs, isn't it? They build. It's a building exercise. You start off with a structure and you build up and you build up and you build up. A new world is at the very early stages. There's a lot more content. I think we've seen pictures of the map. There's 50% of the map still only showing. There's a lot more interesting content. I think there's a lot more in there than I thought as far as variety. But I totally agree with you, Craig. It's go here, kill this, or go here and fetch that. And it does become a bit of that. That's the grind. You're doing that just to level up to get to the next dungeon. But I've been playing. What else have I been playing? I had a little bit of a dabble. I was quite surprised to see San Andreas, GTA San Andreas Remastered was released. And I was thinking, do you know what? I don't really want to spend money on this. As much as I love San Andreas, I've got more than enough to play at the moment. I'm a bit inundated, what with, Forza 5 on Game Pass, Halo Infinite, available for free. It's like I don't even have to pay for games at the moment. Why would I pay? And then I saw that San Andreas was actually on Game Pass, and I was like, hell yeah! And I downloaded that because that is still one of my favourite GTAs, and I love the gang wars where you fight for territory. I just wish they brought that into number 5, because that's one of my favourite mechanics, where you're off doing a mission that says, this gang, the ballers, are attacking this area. You have to go rushing back and then go in and fight them off, and then you have to, and it was just like back and forth. It was this constant play. Sadly, the news is not good. I've only played a little way in, and the nostalgia was great. It really, really was. When old Samuel L. Jackson, I can't remember the name of the cop, Twopenny, that's it, well done. And he picks you up and you're like, oh man, I'm back, this is cool. And graphically it looks great, for an update. But all I've been hearing is bad. It sounds like this was rushed. It sounds like Rockstar just wanted to release this because this was their anniversary as well, and they were trying to get out as quickly as possible. And it's hugely disappointing when a company with the pedigree of Rockstar, with games like Red Dead Redemption 2 and GTA 5, release a game, even if it's remastered old games, in the condition that it is in, is quite frankly appalling. And it shows the state of the industry these days, where they're willing to actually release something in that condition just to make a date. I mean, I saw a video where there are literally holes in the world where they haven't finished building the world, and you just drive over it and you fall through the world. It's not a glitch. There's nothing there. It's just they didn't finish building it. and
So,
things where
yeah.
they've reused icons in one version and another version just to, and yes, there are improvements, but the improvements that are there, I'm sorry, do not warrant me paying out for it again. The fact that San Andreas is on Game Pass means that I will play it because I love the game, and the extra graphical finesse is great to have, even though I think they still could have done a much better job. But it's appalling to me that a company with a pedigree of Rockstar thinks it's acceptable to release a game in the condition that these games are in. It's sad, sad for the industry.
Yeah, I would say I watched it. I watched a video on it today, and it's not Rockstar that made it, is it? It's another studio, studio that have ported it, and apparently, like, most of them aren't actually remasters at all. They're ports of the mobile versions, which have been ported and up-resed, which is like, you're like, yeah, a load of them are the mobile versions, which have been taken, up-resed. So they're missing features that the originals had because they weren't in the mobile release. They have the same wonky physics that were in the mobile releases because the physics engines weren't compatible with mobile devices when they were launched, and all this sort of stuff. So a lot of the stuff you're complaining about is simply because they took a game which was the cut down version anyway, and just jazzed it up for modern consoles with very little care or attention. Rockstar come out with a statement today, was it yesterday, saying, we're really sorry it's launched in a bad state, we're looking into it, there's a patch coming which should address most of the issues. And pretty much everyone's university gone, dude, there's no way you're going to be able to turn around in that length of time. A patch is going to address all of the issues that this game has. Like, it is a state. So I totally get what you're saying, Alan. I think you're 100% right that Rockstar have been lazy. I think Rockstar haven't even cared. They've given it to another studio to do. They haven't had any oversight. Some of the games, I forget which one it is, one of the GTAs. It might be GTA 3. Because again, I'm not a big GTA player. I was watching the video on it, and it was a bit of a controversy. I think it was GTA 3. About an hour in, it just starts to fall apart with massive technical issues. You can persevere past them, but there are huge gaping issues after about an hour of gameplay. And Rockstar were like, none of our testing showed this. And pretty much everyone's like, yeah, like, you actually tested this, because if you tested this, you can't fail to miss the massive issues with your copy, And
it's all right.
So,
we tested
I
the
totally
first 5 minutes and it was okay.
Yeah. Oh, it loaded up, therefore it's fine, It's like, so I completely agree, Alan.
Sad.
Yeah.
It's sad that the industry is in a state where this is an acceptable release for beloved games. People like me, as I said, San Andreas is my favourite one. And I have been looking forward to this. I'm thinking, wow, San Andreas brought up. I mean, we discussed this on one of our previous podcasts, didn't we? We talked about them putting like NDAs out on people and actually taking, versions where people have actually been able. There's actually something in Vice City where when it rains, you can't see. You cannot see because it's raining. And actually, GTA modders have corrected it before the actual people that did it. And it's just, it's so appalling. They may as well just say, fuck you and be done with it, because they didn't care enough to even bother to make sure that it was playable. It's shocking to me, and it shouldn't be, but it is shocking, and I'm so disappointed. But again, I will be playing San Andreas. I'm sure they'll put a few band-aids over it and correct some of the issues and bring it up to a condition where it's playable, but it's the same story over and over again. The industry thinks this is acceptable. It really, really isn't. And we need to start making them understand with our wallets. Although I am going to contradict myself in a second here, and Chris is going to give me a lot of grief. But Bill, did you have anything on that? Because you haven't jumped in.
Well, all I was going to say is it is a shameless down and dirty remaster, and they'll be like 6 months worth of patches, and then mysteriously in another year's time there'll be 100 gig download for it. and it'll just be they'll just port the PC version over onto the console. And they'll be like, look, we fixed everything. And it's a completely different game. And they'll be like, oh, yeah, I see what you've done there. And then the models will go to town on that as well. GTA, those older games, they aren't a beloved memory for me. So I've been very disinterested in that. Like, I loved the original top-down GTAs on the PlayStation 1. I got as far as GTA 3. When I run around, I was probably about 10 at the time. You go around hitting people with a baseball bat. I really enjoyed that.
Explains a lot.
And then basically that was kind of the end of my love for GTA until 5 came back out, and I wasn't really interested in that. And then Craig lent me Max Payne 3, and I was like, oh, okay, I can kind of see where this is going. Same studio, like the gunfire. And then I played it, I was like, oh wow. And they're still making bank on that. They're taking that one to the bank every day with shark cards.
See, what I'm really interested in, just to kind of change something up, I don't want to talk about GTA. I know what Alan is about to say, and I cannot wait to see how much Ratley chastised him about it.
So the other thing that I've been playing.
Wait, is this what you made me promise not to tell Chris about?
And I have no shame. And I will hang my head in shame. Is Diablo 3?
Diablo 2.
No. That as well.
Resurrected.
That as well.
Do you know what, Alan, I'm going to be honest. I saw you on Diablo 3 the other day on Discord, and I was like, it took all my willpower not to go, type nasty words to Alan. Type.
I'm not going to excuse myself other than to say that I think the game industry as a whole is broken, and therefore if I don't buy games from particular publishers because they're a bunch of arses, I'd never buy a game again. But I'm just trying to validate my purchase choices. I mean, I
know the fact he's so ashamed. He looks like a dog. But, you've been telling off.
His ears are down.
I'm so sorry. It is that 100%.
What's really funny is the fact that I bought Diablo 3 on the PC as well, and that's now the fourth version I think I've bought. I bought it for the 360. I bought it for the Xbox One. I bought it for the Switch, and now I've bought it for the PC. So I've actually not just given to Blizzard once, but I've given to them 4 times for the same game. And then I did kind of, I might have purchased Diablo 2 Resurrected on the Xbox. I mean, it's great. I really like it, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm really sorry for the staff and the people that lives were ruined by Blizzard executives, and it's just appalling. But I feel that those developers themselves, not the executives, the developers themselves, they put a lot of heart and love into creating Diablo 2 Resurrected, and I feel that I'm giving them the credit by buying the game, and I don't want them to feel they haven't worked for nothing.
No, do you know what, Alan? I know what you're saying, and I absolutely agree with you. That like, here's the quandary. Right? The quandary is, I still think you shouldn't have bought it.
He did look so sad. It was like almost an apology when he was talking about it. It's like, and I feel like I'm giving it to the.
I've let down my teachers. I've let down the school. I've let down my parents.
The problem we face is you're 100% right, Alan, in that I want to support the developers because they're the guys that work really hard on the game. Bobby Kotick, for all of his psychotic nonsense and the fact that how he's still in charge of that company is beyond me. We won't go into that because it's depressing news, and we're not here to do that. But like, this is the problem: is I want to support devs who make great games, but because of people like that, it becomes very difficult. Because how do you support the devs without supporting those kind of abusive arseholes, essentially, and it's difficult, and I totally get it. And I think, we've got to be vocal in our thing of like saying, we're not happy. We've got to be as vocal as you can online, speak about it, make sure that it's not a norm and it's not okay. And, if I was a shareholder, I'd be making my voice very well known. What's depressing is the constant sight of it seems that money is more important than anything else to these corporations, which we've discussed at length, Alan. I know, you feel this way, and that needs to change. Without people making these games and great people at that, we wouldn't have great games. And Activision needs something to happen to change that. And I think, the removal of that man, the man who should no longer be named, let's just say that the man who should no longer be named, he needs to go because that company is always going to be poisoned until he does. And it's a shame because Blizzard, makes some great stuff. Like I want to play Diablo 2 still to this day so much. I just cannot bring myself to buy it. If he goes, the second he goes, I will purchase it on principle because it's a step in the right direction. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's difficult to do.
And I applaud your strength, and I applaud your ability to stand up to the man.
I also won't criticise your weakness, mate. I also won't criticise your weakness because I understand why you would do it. It's the difficulty is how do we as people support the people that need the support? Like, because they need it financially as well. Because if Diablo 2 isn't a success, people are going to get fired. And Kotick's that kind of psychotic arsehole that will do that. I've said his name again, so he wouldn't do that. But and that's the thing. I want to support those guys. I don't want to support that person. That's the difficulty. But yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying it, Alan. That's all I can say, mate. If you're enjoying it,
I nearly caved cool, yesterday. It's down to 25 quid on the Black Friday.
I've really struggled. I've really struggled, mate. I keep looking at it going because it's one of my favourite games. That is nostalgia, and so much for RPGs to me. I'm just like,
they've done quite well apparently.
Yeah.
I've done quite well, isn't it, Alan?
Nothing but good things.
Oh yeah, it's really, really good, and I think it's really, really interesting because for me, the biggest amount of time I've spent has been on Diablo 3 as opposed to Diablo 2, and there is this argument, between hardcore Diablo players about, they think that Diablo 3 was too arcadey, and it's like the argument there's too many legendaries and all stuff like that, and Diablo 2 is much more darker and much more, more gothic and everything else, and all of those arguments are really, really valid, and I can see the difference between the two games. Despite the age difference, they play very differently because of those differences and the way that they're made. And I'm interested to see how they transpose over. They're trying to kind of do an amalgamation of the two styles for Diablo 4. So pull in the Diablo 2 crowd whilst keeping the Diablo 3 crowd happy as well, because both games are a fantastic success. Say Diablo 3 wasn't a success because all the Diablo 2 naysayers who go, oh, it's got this and that. It's got a massive audience, Diablo 3. Still, I should know. I keep bloody buying it. But it's really interesting to see the differences between the games, and I think that whilst fundamentally those differences can make a big difference to gameplay, they are at essence the same game with the same level of enjoyment and that grind about getting that next bit of armor piece and leveling up your character to be a bit better. I mean, and I just find it's one of those things where I can just jump on for an hour and just turn my brain off and just this ability, that ability, destroy hordes of monsters and get another weapon. Is it better than that one? And just keep working on your build and improving, and it's not a stressful game. And it's one of those games I can say I've never ever gone, oh my god, it's never ever once stressed me out. And there are plenty of games, Forza and Halo and all these ones we're talking about, there are occasions where I'm just like, oh, I don't like this, because things aren't going your way. But Diablo is just relaxing and fun and stuff like that. Love the game. So I think that's really interesting. I think they've done a fantastic job on Diablo 2. They really, really have, bringing it up. And it's funny because when you play it, you look at the graphics and you think, oh, they haven't done all that much. No, it doesn't look exactly the same, because your brain deceives you, and then you actually go back and you look. I haven't got it on the PC, I've got it on the Xbox, but I think on the PC you've got, like they did with Halo, where you can press a button and go back to the old graphics. Though when you do go back, you go, oh crap, oh my god. Oh my god! It's like 8-bit pixels, for Christ's sake.
I think that is the thing with a remaster. You've nailed a remaster if you make it look how you remember it. And that's the key, isn't it? It looks as good as you remember.
I was going to say, when Al was talking about GTA, I was going to say, I think we're talking about the remastering, like there's a big thing, like it's like Hollywood nostalgia as well, but like it's like with games in particular, like Microsoft set the bar so high for remasters with the original Halo CE remaster. Do you remember that? Like they dropped that and it was like, and I spent forever, like we've talked about numerous times, you go through it and going, oh, this would have looked, so you click that and go, this couldn't have looked like this. It just couldn't have looked like this. How it looked in the first place. And it boggles your mind to think that you drew in all this like imagination in it. And as credit to the artists you made at the time, that they provide you enough atmosphere and information that you could imagine it. But it is like you say, the remaster works when it is exactly what you think it was.
And it's confusing as well, because that's not to take away from the fact that it does look significantly better. It looks more modern with all the amount of assets on screen that can be damaged, and the graphical fidelity is so much higher. But the fact you look at it and go, I know this game, as Craig says, is just testament to how what a good job they've done. We need to stop talking about Diablo 2 because I really want to buy it now.
I just want to drop my.
Can I segue into what I've been doing while we're talking about nostalgia? Because I was going to say, I'll segue into something I did this week, and I want to just talk about it briefly. It's not a games thing; it's a pop culture thing. It's a nostalgia bait of the highest order, which is Ghostbusters Afterlife. And I'm not going to talk much about it because it's almost impossible to talk about Ghostbusters Afterlife in any meaningful way without massive spoilers. But Ghostbusters Afterlife, it's a film which I sat in the cinema and watched, and I will say it's not a perfect film. It's not as good as Ghostbusters, the original, but 1984, which nothing ever will be. I don't think.
Is it as good as the one from 2016? Though?
It's a. Oh mate, I knew you were going to ask that.
That's a low bar.
I mean, I knew you were going to ask that difficult question to answer. All I'll say, I'm not going to sling mud at 2016. I don't think I need to. There's enough mud being thrown in its general direction. I will say this about Ghostbusters Afterlife. If you're a Ghostbusters fan, you grew up on Ghostbusters and you love Ghostbusters. I'm talking about 1984 and the Ghostbusters 2, the sequel. If you love those two and you hold like the world they built in any kind of real, you want to see something, a film which cares about that world and expresses that world in a very real way, which is meaningful. Ghostbusters Afterlife is that film. Like it opens in it's quite a scary little sequence. It's not like ever going to be like full on horror, but it's quite tense and quite scary. And it was surprising to me. I was like, wow, this is a bit much. Because one of the reasons I went to see it was because I was potentially going to go sit on my niece. I still might. I was like, is it too scary for her? So I was doing the good uncle and the test viewing, which again was no real drama for me. I really wanted to see Afterlife, and it was brilliant opening. And I was like, oh my god, this is exactly what I want to see. And then it kind of it really slows down pacing wise for a good 40 minutes, and then that's the point where it feels like it's struggling initially. And I think it's very easy to say the film has got a massive pacing issue, but this slow build starts to really pay off in the second and third acts when, the characters start to find themselves and their purpose, and then the final act. It's perfect. It is.
Wow.
It's everything I wanted that to be from Ghostbusters. The last 10 minutes of the film, I was an emotional ball of everything. I could list all the emotion I went through, and it was just. I've got goosebumps thinking about it. I left the cinema, and all I wanted to do was go back in and watch it again. The whole next day, all I could think about was I want to see this movie again because of the way it made me feel. Not how perfect it was as a movie, not about how magnificently written it was or how brilliantly acted it was. And it is brilliantly acted. McKenna Grace, I think the girl's name is, who plays Phoebe, the lead character, is absolutely sensational in it. She is so good. She carries the whole movie. And I can't say enough good things, but literally, like, it's a feel-good movie. It's like being wrapped up in a big warm blanket at the end, and you feel great about it. And it really hit me. It hit me hard in a different way. There was fist pumps, there were tears. I actually cried. And if you know me, like, it's now 3 films in my entire life have made me cry, and Ghostbusters Afterlife hits that. And I cried for all the right reasons. It was only like one tear. If I was a more emotional person, I think outright, I would have been in absolute floods. I can see there will be people who will have full-on breakdowns at the end of this movie. It's so emotional. It's just brilliant. It is just brilliant. It's so well thought out. It's a meaningful enhancement of continuation of the story. The acting's superb. The effects are just absolutely top drawer. Everything about it is great. It's not perfect. I didn't expect it to be perfect. It's the perfect Ghostbusters movie, if that makes sense.
Awesome. High praise.
I feel like, have you ever heard of that thing called the Mandela Effect? I feel like I've slipped into an alternate universe, because I never thought that the afterlife would actually be any good. I mean, I don't, you kind of hope, don't you? You kind of hope, because they're doing something on a franchise that we all fundamentally love. There's a childlike part of you that looks at those films, and you've got such good memories about watching them the first time. There's nothing bad about it whatsoever. It just brings that feeling, that warm glow inside, and you just every time you watch them, you feel the same thing. It's a bit like watching the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but that's a different story. But it's just memories. But but it's just to hear that you didn't go in and come out and go, you know what, let's go and watch the 2016 version because it was better. Because there's so many ways they can mess it up. It's such a beloved franchise. It's really, really hard to hit those right notes, to hit that right feeling. And everything you're saying, I mean, don't get me wrong, as an adult, you're first to say, yeah, okay, it's a bit slow for the first 30 to 40 minutes. And that's character. They're trying to build the character, and they're trying to build the world, and probably give people who are new to the franchise something to actually, and I haven't seen it, so I'm just guessing, but probably, they're trying to say, look, this is the history of the franchise, this is what you're coming into. But as somebody who knows that already, it probably felt slow to you, but somebody new, it will be new to them, and that pacing won't feel quite so abrupt or so stark.
I agree. I think also the problem with it is in terms of, so there are problems with the film. I'm not gonna stand here and say, it's not a perfect movie. I think one of its big problems. So a good way to describe it is, remember when we all watched The Force Awakens and we're like, oh my god, Star Wars is back. This is a great Star Wars movie. And then you come away from it a little bit. And I still love The Force Awakens, but The Force Awakens is basically Episode 4 rehashed and reskinned in so many ways. It very rarely is freshly original and meaningful. It's just like, I think probably like there's a few moments where it really sort of steps outside of just being, A New Hope, and it is its own movie. And when it is, it's when it's most successful. But I came away from it, and I think like with this I came away feeling good about Star Wars, but I didn't feel like I'd seen anything groundbreaking. And Ghostbusters is close to that. It walks that fine line of nostalgia for the sake of nostalgia and giving you meaningful, like moving it forward and giving it its own identity and story. And it does have its own identity and story, helped a lot by the cast. The cast are really good. But it is also at points guilty of retreading too much familiar ground. Like, but that's kind of the plot is it's an essential that it has to retread certain things. So it's difficult to give it that, but the nostalgia is right in it. It does nostalgia and puts it in there for the right reasons and makes you feel good about it without just kind of patronizing you with it and making you think, oh, they're just baiting me with nostalgia. Because I really hate it. And there have been so many films I've wanted to see, and it just felt like, they just wave nostalgia at you. Go, love this because this was in it. I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but there have been a few films recently I've been like, it just was going, look at me, it's got this in it. You love this thing. Watch this. The thing you love is in it. And it's like, but I don't love this because it's not that thing. It's just you reminding me that this thing was in the thing previously. It doesn't make it good. Whereas Ghostbusters, it does that. And like for example, one of the things I was really happy about is there's no Slimer. They don't just wheel out Slimer as they always used to. Slimer was like, here's Slimer. It's a Ghostbusters movie. So there isn't a Slimer. I will say that it's not a big spoiler because he's not there. There are other ghosts. There's new ghosts. There's a new Slimer for this film, if you like. But even he's not. He's used a lot in the promo. You've probably seen shots of it. But it's its own thing. It's not thing. The proton packs have been slightly changed, but in a good way and for a meaningful way. And everything, all these little things that, as a Ghostbusters fan, if you know the lore, you kind of notice these and go, and then it comes to the end of the line, and you go, oh, okay, right. There's a reason all these things have changed and this has happened, and right, okay, and it sort of explains as you get there. And I can't tell you the things about it I want to tell you that make it so great because they're just enormous, gigantic spoilers, which I would never, ever deprive anyone of because it's so, so wonderful. And like the moments in the film that just work are just sensationally good. And I can't say enough good things about the third act.
Take my money.
The third act.
I think you don't need to tell us, Chris. I think the enthusiasm speaks for itself.
Awesome.
Yeah, you should watch it. And then the other thing I've been doing, which is kind of also a nostalgia bait as well, was Aliens Fireteam Elite is what I've played a lot of, which was new. And as we all know, I have strong feelings towards Aliens games. If you've ever watched the podcast before and anyone's mentioned Aliens games, there are two.
Colonial Marines.
There's Colonial Marines, and then there's Alien Isolation. One of those is really good. One of those is not. Really not.
However, one of those games I finished, and one of them I have not.
Yeah, exactly the same, Alan. But that is also why that game is so good, is because I can't finish it because I'm terrified beyond all rationality of it. So that's doing its job well. So I played Fireteam Elite, and I played it a lot. Me and my friend Luke and Chet, we played the absolute behind out of it for a good couple of weeks. And I've got to say this: is it a great game? No. Is it a great Aliens game? Yes. It delivers what you want an Aliens game to deliver. It's fun, it's engaging, there's a lot of tight action. It's a little bit unengaging on the normal difficulty because it doesn't ever feel pressed or scary. Step that difficulty up just one notch and oh boy, it's like, oh, this gets tough. And then we've done one mission on the second from highest difficulty, and it was proper brown trousers time, the whole thing. And it's just like, oh my God, everything can't kill us. Oh God, we've only got this many bullets. Oh God, what are we going to do? Everyone behind the eye. There's so much running away, and that you accidentally
finally home team there.
Do you know what though? You can't play it on the higher difficulties unless you really well communicate really well, because we kept shooting each other in the back of the head so much, because friendly fire is a thing on the higher difficulties, and it's such a close space that you have to be really careful about who's taking point, clear communication, keep moving forward. There's also some really cool challenge card system. It's got a good challenge card system, and one of them being one where it will spawn a xenomorph drone, which is the sort of weakest of the boss enemies, and right at the beginning of the mission, and you kill it, and then from then onwards there is always an active drone in play. So as soon as you kill it, like the next corner you walk around, there'll be another drone. And so that's a massive drain on your resources and your survivability. And it is constant pressure in this thing. And I've got to say, it was a really great Aliens experience. And I really love that game. For a budget title, it delivered everything it needed to. It did lack some polish here and there. Me and Craig have talked about this, because we played it a bit as well. Like the fact there's no lip syncing or things like that. The game lacks polish, and certainly some of it is a bit waffy at points. But other than some networking issues, which you talked about earlier, the game worked brilliantly at launch. It was,
I think as well with that,
fun
I think another thing that we mentioned, just to cut in there, what they did is they're a small studio and they didn't waste their time making it all these certain things look super pretty and be really nice and polished. They worked on the core gameplay, which meant the game was fun. It's a really good game. Yeah,
the burn card system is really good. Like saying, you're right, Phil.
You can always go back and add, let's say it is successful and they want to re-release it or upgrade it, or they do like an ultimate edition. They can quite easily go back in and add that polish if they want to. Well, they probably won't. It'll be a new game.
They are, mate. They are polishing it. We've had patches for performance. We're now getting, we've got a roadmap with new content coming, another three drops of content coming, all for free on a game that costs 35 quid. And I'm sorry, in anyone's book, that's a bargain. It's a fun game that's dropping free content for the next year. I loved it. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. It wasn't the best game I've ever played. But I will say this, it really showed to me that when Back 4 Blood dropped recently, I went into Back 4 Blood like really excited, being a Left 4 Dead like fan, and I hated Back 4 Blood. It's a bit of a mess. And I said that the thing that really bummed me out was Fireteam is a better Left 4 Dead clone than Back 4 Blood is. It's got more interesting enemies. It's got more interesting environments. The maps are better. There are better audio cues for certain things. I've had way more fun with Aliens Fireteam Elite than I have had with Back 4 Blood. And Back 4 Blood has an inferior burn card system. Whilst, with any burn card system, the problem with card systems is there's always going to be a ton of cards that just suck. You'll get a ton of cards. Well, I'm never using that because that's useless. I'm never using that because that's useless. One of them was like all of your guns except for your sidearm are basically disabled. It's like, and the sidearm is like the crappiest pistol known to man. It takes like 900 bullets to kill anything. So you're like, never playing with that because that would just be just tedious. And there's all these burn cards just kind of go, nope. But there's a few that really enhance and improve the game. But Back 4 Blood just had like something you could just read immediately, go meta. You could just see it. And I was really disappointed with Back 4 Blood, but I was really pleased to say that I had that great experience with Fireteam. And if you want that kind of Left 4 Dead team survival horde experience, buy a copy of Fireteam. It's brilliant. It genuinely is a lot of fun for 35 quid. It's on sale at the minute as well. I think for 25. I think or 20 quid. It's an absolute steal for that price. Genuinely, I can't recommend it enough. It's a lot of fun. My only complaint would be once you're leveled up like I am, going to play that with anybody who isn't leveled up completely destroys their experience because you become Uber Soldier. And so there's no tension at all. You don't have the progression thing, the fun moments, because you basically have a guy on your team who's nigh unkillable and will just like mow everything down in seconds. It's a little bit of that's a shame. But yeah, the classes all feel good. The guns all feel good. It's a great game. I like it. I've got a lot of time for it. I recommend it to everyone.
I think it's I think the price point at 35 is really key. When we're looking at new games coming out and they're pushing the price up to £70 for a next gen game, I think having a game come in at that lower price point that isn't as well polished, but it's then priced lower in return, I think is a really sensible business decision. Like that was a £50 game. That'd be quite a hard pill to swallow, I think.
I would have said if it was a 50 quid game, I would be standing here saying I really enjoyed it, but it's a little bit pricey. And I think if to go back on the polish thing, I think to call it unpolished is a little bit unfair.
Sorry,
it's very
probably
polished.
A little bit harsh. I meant it's not a £50 game; it's a £35 game.
It's a polished game where it needs to be polished. And I think that's the thing, like Craig was saying, they polished the right areas, and that's where the 50 quid pricing would have come in. If they spent the more money to develop it and had the lip sync things and better cutscenes and stuff, then maybe things. So yeah, I can totally see it, but I would recommend if you haven't played it and you want a good like co-op like horde experience, Fireteam Elite is a great way to spend your money. Downside is it can be a little bit difficult to find match-made games, but you only need a team of 3 and you can have some great experience with it. There's a lot of cool stuff in there, a lot of good games.
Yeah, good stuff.
Certainly, I've definitely got my money.
Cool. Right.
Cool.
So I think now's time. As we tease at the top of the show, we want to talk a little bit about, as it's the 20 years of Xbox, just a bit about our Xbox memories. So I think, so Phil went first for it. Mr. Ratley, so how about you go first? Yeah.
Me?
Let's talk about your...
Where do you want... Shall I just start back at 20
have a drink
years
in
ago?
between.
Shall I go... I'll say, we'll do that now. Hold on. Get me water. Get me water. Water. Get me water.
While you're having a drink, I just want to point out how stable is that £190 Halo Master Chief controller stayed up behind you, because that's making me nervous.
I tell you what, Alan, it's very sturdy. It's very sturdy. I'm just going to show off. Look at that thing. This is a thing.
It's just a thing of beauty.
Oh, have you put your old thumbsticks on there? Because I thought they were green.
Yes, I've got the green ones in the carry case, which I happen to have right here. Which
I've got my little
right,
baby one.
but that's
it's nowhere near as nice.
I love that Xbox 20 though, but look at that carry case as well. How cool is the carry case for this? Like, it's sick, right? So I decided if I couldn't afford the console, I was going to have the controller. There's no use stopping me. I'll tell you what, Alan, I'll calm your nerves. But it's somewhere safe now. You watch. I've put it somewhere safe. You watch it get knocked off and fall to the floor. you wait.
It falls off, and then he treads on it, and then because he treads on it, he falls backwards into his Turtles arcade machine. Liara's head pops off. Marcus Phoenix falls over in the background there. Everything collapses. It's like one of those videos you see on Facebook where like the guy hits the bracket, the entire room destroys.
It would be like
his room on fire.
Hushed silence for 30 seconds before Chris's arm emerges from the rubble holding the Halo controller and he's still protecting. And we're like,
thank God for that. Your house has fallen down, but you've got the controller. So yeah, I mean, let's just start at the beginning, guys. I mean, I don't know how many of you guys were there. I don't want to say day one because we didn't get OG Xbox in this country day one, did we? We got it a few months after launch. I don't know if you remember. Like, I remember getting mine. It wasn't a day one launch.
I don't know. See, I didn't get it on day one, so I got it. Yeah,
I remember getting mine day one. Yeah, because I remember I wasn't going to. I'll be honest, I wasn't going to, and I was working at time in a phone shop called The Link. Do you remember that, guys? Remember The Link? Yeah. Oh, yes. And that was part of Dixon Stores Group, which I know you know, Craig, and I know that Phil knows. And I don't think Alan ever worked for the joys of DSG, thankfully for him. But across the way, back in the day, from where I worked at The Link, there was Dixon's. So the Dixon store, and a guy called Simon. Me and him were good buds, and we would chat across because we worked parts of the business. And he rang me up and went, "Do you want an Xbox?" I went, "Yeah." I was like, "What's the price?" He's like, and I was like, "I really shouldn't." He's like, "We can do your finance on it," and I was like, "I really shouldn't." But I'm totally never. So
that is legit the Curry sales approach.
Oh mate, yeah, it's 100%.
The Dixon's group. You want one of these? No, I can't afford it. Did you
finance?
know we do finance? The bell rings. Ding 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 ding. Finance.
and I said, "Okay, let's see what the deal is." We priced it up, and I got an Xbox. OG Xbox in the box, and it came with Halo, Combat Evolved, and another game which I've completely forgotten. So it can't have been that great. And I remember, because it didn't matter, because I went home and I played Halo, and then that was all I was going to play, because Halo Combat Evolved was an absolute revolution back in the day. I just remember being completely gobsmacked when I played Halo, like the story content and the way it was all put together. And like, I love, going back, think about it, the first Halo experience is literally they drop you in out of that light speed jump, and you just get, obviously Captain Key saying, "Oh, did we lose them?" And you're like, "Did we lose who? What's going on?" And then you get the Covenant fight through those little dark corridors, get to the bridge, get your bits and pieces, and I mean, I loved it, and it sort of. I'm one of those people that's a big fan of the Duke controller, so I loved the controller when I got it. The whole thing felt good, I was like super excited. I remember getting like a few games on the old OG on Project Gotham Racing being one of my all-time favorites. The kudos system in Project Gotham, I'd love to see another Project Gotham game. Jet Set Radio on the old one.
They're the three games that I got. I got those two games. Yeah.
And I know they weren't available I'm pretty sure only Halo was available at launch with something else I got. And then I got Project Gotham shortly afterwards. Jet Set Radio was a few months afterwards because it launched after that. And I just remember being completely like, oh my God, this is an amazing console. And the fact that I had a hard drive and I could store music onto it. So for Project Gotham, I could rip my CDs onto the hard drive. And then when I was playing Project Gotham, I could be listening to Machine Head or Linkin Park or whatever it was at the time, And I remember thinking, this is awesome. Like, I can actually use my music. I can use my music while playing these games. This is incredible, And and I remember just being completely blown away. I mean, I do remember it being a chunky machine as well, like that OG Xbox was a Darth Vader's lunchbox or what. That thing was massive. That thing, you could kill someone with that quite legitimately, like properly, like do someone in. And again, it's that thing where if I think back, I remember thinking, look at these graphics. Like the first time I saw Halo, I look up at the ring and I'm like, oh my God, like this, and that music.
Not that music.
Games will never look better than it.
Not that music. That was
what was that, Phil?
Well, that was supposed to be. Yeah, well, it was supposed to be maybe. I got where Phil was going.
I was trying to get the.
Yeah.
The
We have to clip that and put it up as the worst version of the Halo theme.
Phil, give
ever
up.
by
No,
Phil,
it's not Halo theme at all.
But yeah, that first time.
Okay, I went for the wrong note. Give me a break.
But yeah, I remember looking at the ring.
No
And
Xbox.
you do think to yourself, oh my god, these graphics just can't get any better. And then you look back at it and go, wow, they look crap.
Yeah.
But we live in a different world now. Like I remember.
I think something interesting, something important to remember then is though that. Okay, I thought it was going to play. It's worth bearing in mind those old consoles were supposed to work on CRT TVs. And you didn't get
100%
installation on CRT TVs. So I think now we actually look back at, particularly with that anniversary edition, when you press the back button, it goes back and you think that looks like a pile of dump. That's also because it's on an LCD TV, which introduces that blockiness, that stuttering, that motion lag. And we wouldn't have had that on a CRT TV. And I think that's actually really key when you consider
that's a good
comparing
point.
these old games.
Mate, I
OG
100% agree. 100% agree, but it doesn't change the fact that the Master Chief still looks like he's wearing a nappy. In Halo 1, when you see it from the outside, there's no getting around that. As much as I love Halo, you look back at it now. Yeah, you look back at it and go, that's a green nappy, isn't it? That dude's wearing a massive green nappy. It's like, okay. But, we obviously come on from that, and it's a different thing. And I remember getting there, I remember, not falling out of love with gaming during the Xbox period, original one, but I had other priorities. So I was big into my music and was playing a lot of drums, doing a lot of gigging. So gaming fell off the wayside. But I remember picking up a 360 shortly after launch. It wasn't at launch. I was a bit undecided. I wasn't invested in any console, but I was working. I was back at the link after some changes and things. And I remember one of the guys I was working with, a guy called Dan. He was looking on the Xbox site, thinking about whether he should get an Xbox 360. Because, of course, they were first to the punch with HD gaming and next-gen gaming on that generation. And there was a shot of Gears of War, of Marcus Phoenix and Gears of War. It was a promo shot. It wasn't actually, the game wasn't out. And I said, well, look at it. What they started saying, that's a shot from Gears of War. And I went, I don't know what that is, but I need to be on whatever platform that game is on when it launches. And
it was
and I
at
rang...
this moment Chris's life changed.
Forever.
And then I remember ringing Curry's up on Morton Hall, and I went to the guys at Curry's. All right, it's Chris from the link here. You guys got any Xbox 360s? They were like, oh yeah, we've got. I was like, have you got this one? Yeah, okay. What we got? And I was like, cool. Hold it, I'll be able to get it later. And flew up to Curry's, picked up an Xbox 360. I think I can't remember what I got with it because it was obviously there was limited titles at launch. I got Cameo was one of them. Cameo elements of
Elements of Power,
whatever they named that thing was.
Yeah.
That's the one. And I thoroughly enjoyed that as a little platform, a Rare game. It wasn't the best thing Rare ever made, but it was a fun little game, And I just remember 360 was that was the console for me. That was the one where Xbox really just solidified so many things. We got the Halo 3 launch event. We got Gears of War series hitting that. I remember Gears Halo 3 doing I didn't do the midnight for Halo 3, but I did the midnight for Halo Reach. And we're going there and spending all night playing Halo Reach with my buddies. Completing a whole run through from midnight till whenever we went to sleep. Gears 3 did the same thing. Mass Effect was an Xbox 360 title, and that wasn't available on anything else. Microsoft Studios made Mass Effect a possibility, One of my favourite all-time games, which just came out of nowhere for me, and I actually bought at the time for my ex to play because she thought it looked like fun, which was Viva Pinata, which to this day I absolutely love the bones of Viva Pinata. And if you've never played Viva Pinata, you're missing out. It's so much fun. It's so ridiculously addictive. So ridiculously Moorish. So Moorish. I was like, I just need to find out how to get a thing in my garden. Right? How do I do this? And what am I going to do? And it was Rare at their finest, just being kind of just off the wall and crazy. But it was so incredibly just pulled you into that little fun world, And then during the 360, we got Forza start to arrive and things like this. And then the Xbox One rolled up. I remember going to the launch for the Xbox One. It was like a madhouse at Game in Bury. It was an absolute madhouse. They started out this ticket system where they were calling out people's numbers, and that devolved super fast. Everyone turned to rabid animals. Me and my mate Darren were just like, "What's going on here? What's wrong with people?" And we all got consoles, got home, got it set up, did the patches, and I remember being excited for my Xbox One, but it didn't super. They just messed that up a bit. They dropped the ball there. We all know this. And then throughout that Xbox One cycle, obviously, we joined at the very end of it as a team to create the podcast. But there've been so many great things through it, like more Gears, more Forza, more Halo. I got to find the Division, and I've made lifelong friends through the Division. As we know, the Division played a very important part in my life, just keeping me on the planet. And I mean, it's amazing how Xbox has changed. Like, it's going to sound really lame to say it changed my life, but it really has had such a magnificent impact on my life as a brand that, I remember buying as a bit of a whim one day. If it hadn't been for that, I wouldn't have progressed through all these things. I wouldn't have made these friends on the Division. Hell, I might have had a completely different life. Who knows? But it's certainly influenced who I am, my interests, my hobbies, my love of certain things, like Gears of War. I can't imagine not having Gears of War. Because of Gears of War, I went to London for Gears 5 and I've got a tattoo on my leg of
that's commitment, that is, mate.
The locust and the cogs. I've got Gears posters up on the walls now. But I've met guys responsible for the artwork for this thing, and it's incredible to know that it brings people together. It's crazy. I've been playing with people in Australia. I've been playing with people, just down the road. Like I playing with Chet, and I didn't realize he lived in Norwich, which, as is about 45 minutes from us. And it's like, we've been playing for months and discovered he's in Norwich. I'm like, well, yeah, no, you can't be from Norwich, man. It's just down the road, And like other people outside the country, like I say, Australia and America and all this crazy stuff. And absolutely amazing to think that this machine and this brand has connected me across the world with people, and I've made friends with these people and shared experiences with these people, and joy and laughs, and because of them, I've become a Spartan warrior, I've become a racing car driver, I've become a pinata trainer. I've become a
the crowning jewel in your career.
I've become the first human Spectre, essentially. I've done all this stuff because of Xbox, and I absolutely love it. And I'm so thankful for 20 years of Xbox. Like I say, I've got that. The Division is the big part of it, keeping me there. The friends I made playing that, but all that comes from Xbox. If I hadn't been on Xbox, if I hadn't been, that brand, I wouldn't have made those friends. If those people hadn't believed in Microsoft's design and things, we wouldn't all be together to play that game. So it's amazing how the world sort of ticks all together. But I look back at 20 years, and I can't believe it's 20 years either. It's like 20 years of Xbox. Man.
I read somewhere that Xbox has now been in gaming longer than Sega. In game consoles longer than Sega ever was, which is crazy to think that, really, because you think of it as sort of a new piece.
Do you remember when people thought it would be a failure? Like Microsoft would write it off after the first one didn't beat Sony.
It nearly was a couple of times.
Yeah, 360 came along. Yeah, and then they were like 360 was too many technical problems. Microsoft had just been this off this, and Xbox One, it was like, Microsoft are quitting on this, and now here we are with Series X and Series S, and they're without a doubt absolute successes for Microsoft. Yeah, Sony might be shifting more units right now, but let's not pretend like Microsoft's year this year hasn't been absolutely slaying at every opportunity. And they're going to go out this year, I think, on a massive high with Halo Infinite. I think Forza 5 and Halo Infinite back-to-back launches almost. Everything I've seen about the campaign of Halo Infinite, every single person who's had hands-on with it has been like, it's absolutely fantastic. You're going to have a blast with it. Some people are calling it the Breath of the Wild for Halo. And if you know what that means to Zelda, oh my God, that's a compliment, So... yeah, I mean, I'm super, super pumped for Infinite. I think this year has been a great year for Xbox. Great to see it on the 20th year. They really, really hit it out of the park with this, with this iteration. I'm looking forward to for some more. I can't be thankful enough that Xbox has brought me friends and and people into my life. And some great
I want to
games
touch on something just in terms of I won't go through the same sort of thing that you've gone through in terms of like Xbox memory, but a huge thing for me and a huge thing for gaming that Microsoft brought to play was Xbox Live. Obviously, that's something on the first Xbox console. That wasn't really something any other console was. You could kind of do it on PC, but it wasn't the same thing. Building this whole infrastructure and this internal network for people to very, very easily just stick a headset on and jump in and play Halo 2 or Ghost Recon or whatever it might be with their friends, with all the chatting systems in place. I mean, it was absolutely revolutionary, and it's made such a difference to everybody's gaming experience through everywhere. Obviously, all the other platforms decided to sort of, they obviously caught up with what Microsoft were doing, but Microsoft have been really great about trying to innovate with things. It's not always worked.
100%.
Connect, they really tried with Connect, and it had a lot of fun and good stuff going for it. I know Phil was a fan of Connect for.
I was a
but for the microphone side of things.
I've still got mine.
Yeah, it was purely because like my big memories from Xbox has always been the couch gaming side of it, and I'll go into that my turn, so to speak. But the Kinect, I could have my mate Ross sitting next to me, and we could sit there. And I remember this: we were trying to play one of the Diablo games. I think it was 3, and we were both quite pissed up. Let's be honest, as you do. And we're like, we got matched into this game with this other guy who was some ungodly level and just did his like barbarian swirling thing through the entire map and annihilated absolutely everything in sight. And the loot was just. It was legendary. Ross was like, oh my God, he's so high level. We are not worthy of this. Forgetting the microphone was on and the guy was like, invite us, like, what's up, guys? It's like,
do you know what I was also thinking about Xbox Live? But before Xbox Live, the fact it was so easy to network Xbox as a console. You know, when Halo first dropped, I remember like 16 people LAN parties all night.
You've stolen mine. He's stolen mine.
Someone's parents were going away. And what would you do? You'd be always going, Xbox party of mine. Bring the Xbox, bring the TVs. And of course, back then, TVs weighed like the same as a small car. Yeah. So, like, moving your TVs as a mission. And, like, just getting everyone together to play Xbox and Halo. Oh, mate, those nights, man. Those nights.
That was my
so
next
fantastic.
one. You know, just having all the actually getting people together, LANing all those, and having Halo LAN parties and pizza was absolutely brilliant. But Alan, tell us some of your memories.
Well, it's funny because you was talking. I won't go into like every Xbox, but I was just trying to think about where I was or what I was doing when the original Xbox came out, and I do remember that at that current time I actually had a GameCube and I believe a PlayStation 2. At the time, and that was my gaming experience. That was the consoles I had, and I was working in Bury St Edmunds, and I was pretty collectively known as the Choices Video guy. Yeah, I ran Choices Video. I was the manager of Choices Video in the middle
Which
of
is
Bury St
basically a
Edmunds.
Blockbuster, if people don't know, yeah.
Yeah, kids, if you don't know what a video is, it used to make cassettes with films on, and you had to go and pick them up and put them into a player, and you could watch a movie. It's like YouTube, but they put the films on disposable sort of cassettes. I mean, it's hard to explain. It's a bit like the olden days when we used like 2 bits of wood to make fire, for heat. But yeah, so I was the Choices Video guy. And so, of course, we had a gaming section upstairs. So we actually had... I remember slightly off topic, but we had DVD players in the store before they came out, and I think we had a demonstration version of Starship Troopers. None of the graphic stuff, just like when the ships get blown in half. I just remember looking at it, going, "It's like looking through a window. It's witchcraft." And then so we actually had an Xbox, and we had it set up in the store. But because I was the manager of the store, I could actually get my console a day before everybody else. So I'm in a very small niche group of people that was actually playing the original Xbox before everybody else. Because that night when I shut up that shop the day before the release date, which I believe, and I looked it up, March the 14th, 2002.
That sounds about right. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. And the 3 games I had was very similar to yours. I can't remember what your third one was, but of course it was Halo. Just goes without saying. Second one was Project Gotham, and I totally agree with you, Chris. I loved Project Gotham. I'd love to see a Project Gotham 4 with the same ethos that had. And then the last one was actually Tony Hawk's 3, which was on the release date. And just absolutely fantastic. I've got such fond memories of all 3 of those games, just fantastic. But then I took them home the night before it was released, and I was sat there rigging it all up, trying to get the cables into the back of the TV and get it all sorted out, and sitting there and playing those games. And just like I'd have to say, from that moment onwards, the PlayStation and the GameCube, they were pretty sold on pretty quickly after that. There was really no need for them after that. I say this, and I've said this before, I'm not an Xbox fanboy. I'm not sitting here going, yeah, Microsoft are the best and everything else, because I believe that all gaming platforms, they all have something to offer, and they all have their problems. And Microsoft, for the most part, have done some really, really good moves. And I totally agree with what you said, Craig, was that if anything, they were the innovators of Xbox Live and all of that connectivity connectivity that we take for granted. I almost forget that it wasn't part of the Xbox. It was Xbox 360 when that really came in, wasn't it? Or later on down the line when you first got it.
Was it 2
Yeah.
years? Was it 2 years? Year 18 months after launch? But even then, it was massively limited titles. Yeah, I think it was like Halo 2 launched a bit, and then there was only a handful of titles you could actually go on Xbox Live with. One was Ghost Recon, and it wasn't, like you said, Alan, it wasn't a fundamental part of it. It was the Xbox 360. Well, the thing is,
we've got a bigger or a different kind of outlook that someone in the US would have, because in the US at the time, your internet, you'd connect to the internet and you didn't get charged per minute. Back in those days, if you remember, you used to get charged per minute to be on the internet. So your mum would say, "Oh, you've only got," or whatever. I don't actually, to be fair, I don't think I was at home then, but yeah,
like
but it was exactly. It would cost you for the amount of time you're on there. So really, it wasn't a viable option. And a lot of places, the majority of the UK didn't have broadband internet. It was all still dial-up internet. So that's why not a lot of people get it.
You didn't get, because you didn't get the thing where you just paid for it. You literally paid for the time, didn't you? And of course, I'm a little bit older than the rest of you by about a decade. So I was like in my mid sort of 20s, late 20s, sort of. You guys were still kids, so I was kind of like, I could pay for my own internet, so it didn't really have as much impact for me. I was just played as much as I liked, as much as I could afford. So. But it was I think everything about it became it's family. It feels like I say I am a gamer, but all of that is based on a backdrop of I have been playing on Xboxes since 20 years ago. And every single time one comes out, it's not that I have any animosity towards PlayStation or I think it's an inferior console. The fanboys piss me off, but I just hello Phil.
When everybody plays.
Yeah, when everybody plays, we all. But it's become so much a part of my life, not just the console itself, but it's my profile, my history, everything that's on there is part of me, the games I've played, the achievements I've got. Big deal for me a few months back when I finally achieved 100,000 G, which I know you've done quite a while ago. I think you and all of you have. But for me, I don't jump games quite as much as you guys do, and I stick with games for a lot longer, which means when you like Ark, there's no achievements left for me in Ark. It's just I still play it, and that means I'm a bit slower on the uptake. But this is a big deal, It's like these are milestones, and every console that I get. I mean, I'm spending more time on the PC these days, mostly because I've just moved into a new house and I don't actually have the games room set up as well as I did before. But that'll happen. But I think that the Xbox is just something that's just there. It's become something that's integral to my gaming life, and I would just be lost without it. I wouldn't know what, even with a PC or stuff like that. The Xbox, it isn't just for gaming. It's almost like it's a media center, and in a way, that's kind of what they were heading for. I think it's one thing they kind of talked about, and Phil Spencer talked about, especially when we're talking about the Kinect era, and like we're talking about the CD player and all that sort of stuff. For me, I go to the Xbox. I don't have a TV. I go to that's not connected to the Xbox. I don't watch terrestrial television. I use my Xbox to watch movies, to interact with my friends, to do that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's what it is to me. It's an integral part of my social life, of my media and everything. It's all tied into the Xbox, and I just love it. Absolutely love it.
On that, just thinking about something Alan said earlier about DVD players and Xbox. Do you remember on the OG Xbox, if you wanted to use it as a DVD player, you had to buy the DVD playback kit, which was a little remote infrared, the IR receiver that plugged into one of the Game Boys, and the remote. Do you remember that? And I was like, because you could put a DVD in without that plugged in. The Xbox went, nope, I ain't playing it. And you're like, you look at it and go, God, they were ripping me off for like this control.
It didn't work without that. Really?
No, you wouldn't play them. You couldn't.
I don't remember
couldn't play them. Yeah, or you could get to the menu, but you couldn't control the menu with anything but the remote. Like the software wasn't so you couldn't do it with the controller. And I just remember thinking, wow, wow. Like looking back,
that's where PlayStation had the edge. You could put your DVD in your PlayStation, and it would still work with the controller.
Yeah, that was a definite edge. But I remember the Xbox having the media around me, like, oh, that's so awesome. Like getting that and being like, I've got a DVD player now as well. Yeah.
So, Mr. Phil, give us your Xbox memory.
So, see, I have really fond memories of Xbox games, much like you guys. Like, I really loved playing the original Halo. It's still one of my best kind of gaming memories. But I played that on the PC. And it was the exact same with the original Mass Effect as well. I actually played that on the PC. So I didn't actually buy an Xbox until much later in the lifespan. And I blame you entirely, Craig, for this. Because
what are you doing here, Phil? Get out!
We were working.
Pretend Xbox fan.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of Xbox. I'm a fan of gaming.
Mate, good answer.
So my first Xbox was an Xbox 360. It cost me £30. It was completely faulty and knackered, but it was it had the 3 rings of death, and it was less than 3 years old. So I bought it for £30 for Currys. I shipped it back to Microsoft, and they sent me back a refurbished console for £30.
Nice.
So yeah, because the hot towel didn't work when I tried that at first. So yeah, I shipped off to Microsoft, got it replaced.
Oh, the power.
So my first 360, it was the white, the 20 gig one. It was the one that came back from refurbished was hella loud. Like, they obviously refurbished something, but not the fans in it. Like, you had to play it with headphones. But you know what? I was completely sold. I had like Amigas, and I'd had PC. I was a very big. I didn't consider myself a gamer, but yeah, I did a lot of gaming. I only really started considering myself a gamer when I had a 360 and started playing online with other people. And I was perfectly capable of doing it on the PlayStation 3 I had. I just didn't. I didn't have anyone on PlayStation 3 that I wanted to play with. Nobody else had them. I bought this Xbox, and I got myself Forza 3, and I was hooked. I was back into racing. Like, Gran Turismo was dead to me. Dead. Didn't touch it. Yeah, it was like, what's this crap on PS3? This isn't Forza. And as it was dead to me, and I've never looked back since then. Never gone back to a Gran Turismo game. And then I started playing like Halo 3 online with Craig, and I think Gears of War online. Ritzy, our good friend, Andrew Ritzimer, playing Gears of War 2, and he's having a chainsaw battle with a locust, and I sniped the guy's head in the middle of it, and he sent me a screenshot, and all he saw on his screen was the guy's head explode before he chainsawed it in half. He's like, what just happened? That was amazing! So,
brilliant.
Very much my happiest memories of Xbox are actually much later in the lifespan. Like, they'd refined that Xbox Live experience. So I just got the best of it, really. I mean, I joined late on, so all the top tier games like your Halo 3s and your Gears of War 2s, they were already out. You know, I didn't pay much for the console. I mean, just for reference, I ended up then buying one of the slimline consoles, the one, I think it was either the 500 gig or the 1 terabyte one, a little bit later on when they re-released it, because I was fed up of the noise of that old white console, to be perfectly honest with you. And the amount of time investment and fun I got out of it, like, it was well worth the 190 odd quid I spent, because I'd got my money's worth out of the 30 quid one. Sent that off to be recycled a few years ago. Felt a little tear came to my eye. So I put it in the recycle bin. I'll make a nice toilet hole folder for somebody, probably.
Awesome.
But yeah, that said though, I mean, Xbox One, I was there at the start with you again, Craig. We were there at Asda. You harassing the lady behind the counter to go and get you the version of Battlefield 4 that came with the China Rises DLC. Because you came back with 2 versions, and you're like, have you got one like that? And she was like,
yeah.
And off she shuffled. Came back 10 minutes later. She goes, was it this one? You're like, yeah.
Well, we had the fortunate situation of working for an electrical retailer at the time, so we've never had to do the midnight queuing up, like, you know, getting a ticket system. We've just gone pre-order it and go and pick it up in the morning before the shop opens.
We were there literally. That nobody ever gets to the shop before 8 a.m. We're with it 7 a.m. prompt. It's like, right, put it through the till at 7 a.m. It's fine. We just sold one to each other. And then luckily with the Series X, I was still working in retail at the time, so you got the same thing again. It was sort of, I was there at 7:30 in the morning, 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Go on, Craig. We get your Series X. So yeah, good memories. And we actually went to the retail demo of the Xbox One as well, didn't we? So we drove all the way down to London to a hotel, which I made us late for as usual. Nothing changes. We got in there and we got to play Forza 5
Killer Instinct.
and I mean those and Killer Instinct, but the vibration triggers Horizon 5 just
Horizon 5.
Was it Motorsport 5?
Yeah. It was just mind blowing. I mean, we spent hundreds of hours playing that game, refined the lap. I got into the top 300 for the Prague in the entire world, because I was racing against our boss at the time. And,
mate,
it was so competitive every day
on that one. The one that we were all going for. I could never catch you those last few milliseconds.
Me and Tony definitely got into it. It was either the top 300 or the top 500. We got very close. We were within like about sort of 2 seconds of the top, but there was that massive delta when you got into like the top 100, and they were so much better.
You just reminded me of like Guitar Hero 2. Oh, sorry, 3. Sorry, on the 360. I went hardcore on that game, like the 2 Guitar Hero games. I remember hitting the leaderboards and getting to like top. I think it was top 300 or 200 in the world on Guitar Hero 3, and I was like, oh, have I done this? Like, yeah, you know, like no, oh man, it feels good, doesn't it? Like those achievements.
That makes me think of a question, right? A question for everybody in the group. Can you remember the first game you maxed out the gamer score on?
Yes, I can. I absolutely can. I can tell you right now what it was, and it is that wonderful masterpiece that made me the pinata trainer I am today. It was Viva Pinata. I got the full 1,000 Gs, and it was ridiculous. I remember getting it and going, how have I got a 1,000 gamer score? I just not realizing I spent like, you know, the best part of 2 days, like actually in real world time, just trying to get pinatas into the card. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I spent quite a lot of time on this game. Mine
was really late because I'm not a game. I've got a reasonable sized gamer score, but I am not an achievement hunter at all. I think I've maybe 1,000 G 2 games, and that's just because I think they 1,000 G just for finishing them. But the first one I did was actually the game Inside. Do you remember the kind of sort of spiritual successor to Limbo?
Yeah.
And you get a majority of the gamer score, I think, for just playing through it. But actually, a lot of them were about finding little tiny secrets within it, and I loved that game so much. And it was quite a short experience. It was probably sort of 5 hour end-to-end experience. So actually going back through it and trying to find these little bits that I'd missed, I really, really enjoyed that, because I'm one of those people, I can't stick hundreds and hundreds of hours into games over like. I'd like to jump between different experiences, what I'm fancying at the time. But yeah, so I think I've probably maybe got 2 that I've 1,000 G'd, and that's it. Phil?
I think for me, it was one of the Fable games. I believe it was the original Fable was the first one, and the only.
Would that have had achievements? That was an Xbox.
No,
wasn't it?
It was Fable 2. It was Fable 2, I believe, is the one that I did. And the only other game off the top of my head that I remember 1,000 G'ing or full, it was actually Assassin's Creed Brotherhood of all the games.
Oh, okay.
I didn't finish 2 completely, but for some reason, Brotherhood really just captured me. I don't know, I think I quite like the whole ancient Rome setting, I think, and it just really captured me, and I properly went.
So on a slight side note, yeah, you're saying 1,000 G'd. I have 100%ed a few achievement games, but they were the old arcade games when you only used to have 200 gamer score in the old arcade games. So I've done something as well. But go on, Alan.
Well, Alan, what was your 1,000? Come on.
Well, I think I've mentioned it before. So the one like you, Craig, there's the first one I ever got was one where it was just a question of finishing it, and that was Need for Speed Most Wanted, I think, and it was like 15 big boss races you had to finish. And each one you got certain amount of G, and when you got to the last one, you finished it, you got the whole lot. So that was just finishing the game and doing the races. But the one I was most proud of, which is the one I've mentioned before, is Dead Rising, which is 1,000 G on that, because some of the achievements in that are just mental. And just like having to rescue all the survivors and having to hide in a toilet for 3 hours while it's the next, you can go and get another person, and going off and making a cup of tea while I've got my character walking in circles in the toilet, which is the only safe area in the game, and timing it so you can go and do each specific moment. And it was a labour of love, and something I'm sadly proud of.
I've got to just briefly cut in on there, Alan, because we've just had a comment come up from Ryan, my son, saying, Phil, Brotherhood is set in Rome, but not ancient Rome. So there, so you get it right. Anyway, sorry, Alan.
Yeah,
my apologies.
Yeah, just disgusting there. Right. Disgusting.
Well, I'm quite frankly.
So is Odyssey set in Greece or ancient Greece?
I don't know. Maybe we'll see if he'll comment.
That's ancient Greece, isn't it? Yeah.
Alan. So just
Greece.
No, that was it. Really.
Wasn't there an achievement though on Dead Rising? It was something kill like 75,000.
Yeah, so it's 74,000 something every. So it's basically the population of Willamette. So basically, what you do for that, it's not as hard as you think it is, because the tunnels underneath the mall are just absolutely rammed. So you get yourself a car and you just keep driving around, continuously mowing hundreds. Still takes you a good 2 or 3 hours, but not as difficult as you might think.
So it's more the ones where you're having to time, like getting the right survivors at the right time.
That's the hardest one. Rescuing all the survivors was by far the hardest. it's just mental, because you've got to go to specific areas at specific times, and then sometimes you couldn't take them back to the safe room. You'd have to wait somewhere because you wouldn't have enough time to do the journey, so you'd then have to wait with other survivors to go and get more survivors, and then you'd have to marshal them all, and they constantly got stuck on zombies, so you'd have to turn around and rescue them, and you're all doing it on a time limit because you've got to be in another area to rescue another survivor and it was just, you had to kind of figure it all out and try and get it just right.
Yeah, that was because that game you had to find out the day would end, wouldn't it? And then that was the end of the game. You basically start it again, was it? Or
72 hours, 3 days. Yeah.
Oh, good stuff. Awesome. Cool. Odyssey is ancient Greece. Okay, he has confirmed.
Yeah. So
Glad.
On the achievement question, so we all have like a game with 1000 G. Does anyone have an achievement they're particularly proud of getting, when they worked that one that they put the time in to get, because it was like they either wanted to do in a game? Because I've got one, and I don't know if anyone else has. It's purely because it goes back to Guitar Hero, and like with me, Guitar Hero 2, when I beat the expert tour on the tour on expert difficulty essentially, and then beating Freebird, and I had been stuck playing Freebird like so much, like just failing at the guitar solo and being like, I'll get it eventually. And the day I did it, like I'll never forget. Like literally, the song ended. I'm just like, and I've got I'm like standing in my room, my bedroom, guitar in one hand by the neck, like fist bump in the air, and be like. So yeah, that achievement means a hell of a lot. I was like, I worked for that achievement. I earned that one particular achievement. That was hard work and well worth the time.
Yeah, see, for me, achievements. Does anyone else have because I don't generally hunt unless something grabs my eye and I go, oh, that looks like fun to go and get. It's never really been at the forefront for me. I don't really get anything from 1000 G in a game. It's just if they're fun little things to do, they can add a bit extra to the game.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think it's a really fun, great mechanic that they added, because it depends on the game. Some games, I just want to keep playing them, and it adds that extra level. It means that it gives you something else to do. If there isn't that extra level within the game itself, you say, right, I'm going to go back and I'm going to replay the story to do this or to find this or to get the achievements. But I don't necessarily always spend my time hunting.
I agree, 100%.
Depends on the game.
Guitar Hero played naturally into that, because just getting to that point where you could be like complete expert took time and investment and skill to review. But I was just enjoying playing Guitar Hero. But nailing that achievement, oh my god! You're gonna say, Phil? Sorry, mate.
I was gonna say I sit very similar to Craig with this. There's nothing that really springs to mind. I've never been that like I have 1000 G'd Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, but I wasn't aiming to do that. That just happened to be. I was on a collectathon with that particular game, and it just so happened that collecting all the stuff is what teed you into that 1000 G by completing everything.
Yeah, I also have one really shameful game on my gamer score, which I was like, can't believe I did that, but I did it for the laughs. So there was a game on the 360 called Avatar: The Burning Earth, and I think it's now backwards compatible.
I remember
so if you missed
that
it,
game.
You can now do it. And it is so laughably poor. It's a bad game. Like I couldn't tell you how bad, because I've never seen literally past the first level, because the game opens up. Yeah, so you load the game, you play the cutscene, and then you start the game, and it will literally take you longer to load the game and watch the cutscene than it will to earn all 1000 Gs from that game. It is insultingly bad. So I picked it up from a second-hand thing when I had a group of mates. We were getting together for a night of Gears of War or something. And I was like, let's just see if this is true. We popped it into the 360, and I was like, you just stand in one corner, mash one button, all 1000 G. And I was like,
madness.
And like literally 10 minutes, 5 people all had 1000 gamer score after that game within 10 minutes. It's like,
somebody let me.
That is stupid.
Go on.
Yeah, as I say, I'll tell you what that springs to mind with me actually, which is a sad memory from the Xbox era. Speaking of backward compatible games, when I played 360, I was a massive fan of the Armored Core games, particularly the fourth one, which is called Armored Core for Answer, because it was flying around in big mech suits. I'm a big mech fan, so that game was my jam. None of the Armored Core games are backward compatible. Even on the latest drop, I looked through the full list, no Armored Core anywhere to be seen. My teeny tiny heart shattered into a million pieces. There's no good like kind of mech style games like that. Titanfall's good, but it's not. Armored Core had that kind of extreme like flying and darting around, and you had like a laser blade to cut the other guy in half and stuff, and you were like dodging and shooting down the missiles and stuff. And no other game seemed to capture that feeling. Yeah.
Cool.
Sad
Right.
memory.
Well, we're
sad
sort of
now.
knocking on the door of 2 hours for this first podcast coming back. I think it's possibly the longest one we've ever done. So I'm thinking of getting to the time.
Lots to talk
Exactly.
about.
It's been a long time. We haven't been chatting about bits and bobs, so it's been really nice to kind of get together again. I hope people have enjoyed listening to us waffle again. So I guess what that leaves is really it's a bye from me. It's a bye from Phil. It's a bye from Mr. Ratley.
See you all later.
From Mr. Longfangs Howlett.